A very good afternoon to you all. My name is Nkosikwana Ndlovu. I'm the Sales and Distribution Executive for First Mutual Life. I just want to appreciate your presence and also to thank you. And also to thank you for attending this business conference. I'll just say a few issues around First Mutual, maybe 4 issues. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that the people that I wanted to introduce are here. First Mutual Life is part of First Mutual Holdings, which is a financial services group and is well represented. We have the group marketing and strategy executive Farai Mangwende. I think she's out at the moment. We also have Sten Sisia, who is the general manager for the health company. We also have the managing director for Pearl Properties, Mr. Manyoa. And we have David Nyabaza, who is the MD for TriStar. He's going to be presenting a paper this afternoon. And also we've got Max Ngobe, who is the general manager for First Mutual Wealth. Last but not least, we have got our finance executive for First Mutual Life, Pet Kunduru. I think he's seated right at the end. Why I'm mentioning and introducing them is because if you have got any issues after my presentation, please feel free to speak to them. I'm not going to take much of your time. I just want to appreciate, in the morning I saw some of our clients who were here. We want to appreciate our relation that we have. We also want to appreciate the support that we have received from you, and want to assure you that our service still remains the same, a service of excellence, that our agenda remains the same, an agenda to make sure that all your needs are met and met at the right price. I also would like to appreciate those who are not yet our clients. In the morning, they spoke about Command Agriculture. I hope that maybe sometime in the future there will be Command Financial Inclusion, or you find yourself as being one of our clients, willing. But more seriously, we want to also ask that maybe if you can be engaged in a conversation so that you can understand your business needs and you can also understand what First Mutual is all about. First Mutual Life in particular, which is a platinum sponsor for this event, is led by a lady. She did the morning presentation, a powerful lady indeed, Ms. Ruth Ngobe, who is the managing director. We part of First Mutual Holdings, like I have mentioned. We really focus on 3 pillars as a group and as a company. The first one focuses on wealth creation. The second pillar focuses on risk management. The third pillar focuses on wealth management, both at individual level and also at company level. We have a number of products, but because of time, I'm just going to summarize them under 2 umbrellas. The first group is to do with employee benefits, where we have got our preservation fund. We have got also our employee benefits, which you could call a pension. We also have got group life assurance, which covers an employee in the event of death while they are still in your employee, while they are still your employee or in your organization. The next group that I'm going to look at before I conclude is the individual life and funeral business. On the individual life business, we have got products, life insurance products. I think we're all familiar with life insurance products. We also have got investment products, which really focus on either a short-term horizon in terms of investment or a long-term horizon. We also have got funeral products, which really will assist in the event of death. As First Mutual Life, we think it's very important to be here in Bulawayo, the City of Kings, and be a platinum sponsor, because we believe that this conversation that we are having as businesses, as individuals, is a very important conversation, which really informs us as we go forward, which also assists us as we move, both at company level and also as a country. Let me say that I hope that we also learned a lot of things. I learned a lot of things in the morning. Maybe one thing that I would like to share with you before I sit down is that when I heard that there is a new currency, Dr. Mlambo, the gold currency, I thought maybe now our problems are over. But I think, like you said, that it's not an issue of current choice. It's an issue of addressing the fundamentals that are affecting us as an economy in terms of our productivity, so that we are able to generate the needed foreign currency. Again, I want to thank you for your support, and I would like to invite you to visit the First Mutual Pavilion, where you can get more information about our products. I'm not going to give you directions to that pavilion because I think it's so distinct that you cannot miss it. And it's so outstanding that you will just see it as you walk along the grounds. Last but not least, I wish you a good stay here, and also please come and see us so that you can so that you can learn more about First Mutual Life and get to understand our products better. I thank you so very much.
Thank you very much to First Mutual Life for your brief remarks. And I say brief because you have really stuck to your time. We appreciate that very much. And thanks for the invitation to come to your stand. We will take note of that. At this juncture, I will invite Net One to also come forward and also say a few remarks. Put your hands together for Net One, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Spencer Mangua. I'm the executive for customer experience for Net1. I know we are all just coming from lunch, and I hope what I will share with you here will keep everybody awake and alive, because we've got some very exciting news from Net1. We want to talk to you about our story as Net1. So the journey of Net1, what is our strategic intent? How do we see ourselves fitting, not just in the ZITF event, but also what's the kind of relationship that we're trying to create, not just with individuals, but with corporates and any other like-minded organization. We've got business goals that we have set ourselves in the next 3 years that we would want to share with you, because we see opportunities for all the parties concerned. And as Net1, we are aiming to transform not just business, but the people of Zimbabwe as a whole. Next, please. So Net1 started in 1996, and mainly we've been focusing on traditional services, which is mainly your voice and SMS. And at some point, we were actually the first to launch, which meant we were the first on the market, but we were also third in terms of both market share and value share. Mainly because of the limitation in terms of the products that we were offering, as well as the fact that we could not keep up with the fast-moving technology in the world. So, next please. In terms of the current market situation, you find out the traditional products and services are slowly becoming obsolete. We are being overtaken by the so-called OTTs, which is the over-the-top services. Your WhatsApps, your Skype, your Viber, all those things have brought in a lot of disruption in terms of the amount of revenues that MNOs have been getting in the past few years. So we look at it as an opportunity for us to get out of the comfort zone that we have been. And we have to adapt. Otherwise, if we don't adapt, we're going to die. So as Net1, the opportunities lie in the current 4G LTE network that we've been rolling out. We've got big data. MNOs have got a very unique opportunities in the sense that they've got data for almost everyone. We know your address, we know your date of birth, we know where you work, we know where you make 90% of your calls. So as MNOs, we need to take advantage of that data and see how we can work with that data with corporates, so that when you want to advertise, you're not just shooting in the dark. For example, there's no need for a company that is based in Harare who want to do a promotion maybe in Avondo area, sending messages to everybody, somebody who is in Plumtree or in Beitbridge. But we need to keep it targeted, we need to keep it focused. As MNOs, we are saying as Net1, we've got that information, and we believe that information can be utilized by all the corporates as well. So where are we now? 3 years ago, we were given by our shareholder 280 million. And of that, we have used that to invest and grow our network. And I'm happy to announce that we have since completed the phase 2 of our network expansion. What that meant is we are now affording everyone, even in the remote parts of the country, they can now have data services. We have rolled out LTE, which is 4G, or high-speed data network in all the major cities, Harare, Bulawayo, Victoria Falls, Mutare, we are there. We have started to launch new products and services. Last year, we introduced One Fusion. Last month, we have One Radio, we have Kuluma, we have more data, and we have revamped some of our products and services from previous years to make them more profitable. And also, our subscribers now have crossed the 4 million mark. We have also recently purchased a new mobile money platform, which is being installed and that will be rolled out very soon. So just some of our brands to share with you there. We've got One Fusion, which is basically a package that gives you the best of everything. We have realized we've got customers or subscribers who require everything at the touch of a button. So that gives you voice, that gives you data, that gives you social media. And we are saying it's one of the products that I hope all of us have tried, or at least if you have not tried it, please come through to our stand, which is just a minute from here, to try and experience and understand how One Fusion can change your life. More data speaks for itself. It's one of those that seeks to transform not just individuals, but also organizations, because when you are connected, you are basically linked throughout the whole world. Next, please. So in terms of just our vision, as Net1, we have identified our customers as our number one strategic objective. And also we want to be profitable. We want to add value, not just to our shareholders, but also to our customers. Our staff remains one of the key elements of the organization, and we need to make sure that we invest the money that we have been given to make sure that our systems operate efficiently, to make sure that we deliver our promise to our customers. And the end game for Net1 is to make sure that in the next year or two, we become a profitable organization and we can declare a dividend to our shareholder. So those are our goals, just in summary, where I spoke about the new MFS platform that we're going to launch. We have changed our objective as well to say, you know what, where we are going now, it's no longer fighting about the products and services. We have gone past fighting about who's got the largest network in the country, but it's all becoming about who offers what value to the customer. It's now about customer experience. And we are saying one of our strategic goals is to make sure that Net1 becomes customer-centric in terms of what we offer to our customers. We also need to manage our costs. Obviously, in this environment, you need to make sure that what you are getting and what you are spending ensures that you survive the next day. I spoke about increasing value share for our shareholder, and we also want to continue to lead in corporate social responsibility. So the growth opportunity, obviously, is in making sure that our services are accessible to everyone. We want to tap onto the OTTs. We have started partnering with those Facebooks, WhatsApp, Twitter. We're offering bundles through partnership with social networks. And one other key area that I spoke about is targeted advertising and using technology to see how we can identify content services that customers can utilize. Okay, so one thing that I want to elaborate to everyone, I haven't seen or heard this morning, was to say, in coming up with all these products or services that we offer, we need to identify who is the future. And as Net1, we have said that our youth are going to be the key drivers of our products and services. Why? Because they like to experiment. Why? Because they can actually tell you what is happening in other markets. Why? Because they will tell you about what's happening in the entertainment industry, what is happening, what is the future of mobile applications. So as Net1, we are saying we are going to target the youth as a future of the organization. And you will see from the products and services that we're going to be offering that our target now is going to be forward-looking. Next. Okay, so that's the transition that I was talking about in terms of Net1 becoming customer-centric. You find out a lot of organizations, when they look at customers, any customer is as good as the other customer. But we are saying as Net1, each customer is different. They are unique. And we need to provide them what they require because they are different. And also we want to measure return, not just by what we are getting as the business as a whole, but we're coming up with a model which is customer share value, to say this customer has been with us for so many years. What is the value that they are bringing to the organization? And what can we give back to the customer so that we appreciate our customers? We are revamping all our shops to bring in a fresh, new look where our customers, those that are high value, are actually afforded that recognition that they deserve. And the idea is to then grow some of our customers who are not in that high value cluster, to also grow them by providing new products and services. So basically, that is what is going to differentiate Net1 going to the future. We want to be first into the market in terms of coming up with new products and services. We want to offer you delightful customer experience, and we want to continuously be innovative. One of the key areas that we have identified is how do we empower both our urban and rural communities by offering products and services that are relevant. We are partnering with ministries in water, in energy, in health. Earlier on, we spoke about the e-education, e-health. We are working with schools to offer them ICT solutions as well. And at the end of it all, we want to make sure that our financial MFS, mobile financial service, offers a one-stop solution for both government, private, and public organizations. So thank you very much, and once again, appreciate you for listening to me. Like I said, our stand is just a minute away from here. If you want further information, please come through. We'll be happy to share with you some of the exciting things that are coming on board. And I hope all of you, when we leave this ZITF, you'll be connected to One Fusion. I thank you.
Thank you very much to Net1. Thanks for sharing your strategic intent and also your products. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in this, our third session, which we are about to embark on, we will be dealing with a number of issues. But before we get there, I just wanted to say a few remarks. For the past 2 years, I've been coming to ZITF, to the International Business Conference. And in those 2 years, I always found myself standing in for somebody. So this time around, I think the organizers thought, I think this lady, we must just give her a slot so that she doesn't have to stand in for anyone. So I want to thank you for affording me that opportunity to be the facilitator for this session. However, I do have a small complaint. I can see a few rows that are empty in the front. Maybe next year, if you ever have to ask me again, I don't wish to facilitate a graveyard session, because it seems after lunch, everyone sort of disappears and, you know, they don't come back. But anyway, needless to say, the morning session was very, very good. I think there were a number of questions which were asked, but I'm sure some of you still had some burning questions and you did not get the opportunity to, you know, to field your questions. Please note that at the end of this session, we will have a question and answer session again, a discussion. So you will be able to have that opportunity to ask those questions. So please, we have not forgotten that the session was very short, just before lunch. We want to open it out again and afford you that opportunity. I also want to say a few other things. We do have an evaluation survey form which has been distributed to all of you. If you just take a look, maybe on your tables or maybe in your bag, there could be a form. Kindly complete this form and leave it on your tables. We'll collect it at the end of this conference. It's important so that we can have feedback in terms of what we need to do better for next year. So in this, our third session, we do have another set of very eminent speakers. They will be introduced one at a time. But just to say, the discussions will be done at the end by Dr. Jay Katera, who is here at the high table. Thanks for joining us. And with those few opening remarks, I will now introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker for the third session, when I looked at his face, I said, he looks very young, but, you know, as they say in life, it's not how long you've lived, but it's what you have done during the time. So His Excellency, Mr. R. Masakui, He's the ambassador, the Indian ambassador to Zimbabwe, to the Republic of Zimbabwe. Born on the 15th of August, 1967, Mr. R. Masakui joined the Indian Foreign Services in 2001 after obtaining a master's in English language from Delhi University. He also served in a Reserve Bank of India from 1999 to 2001. After joining the Indian Foreign Service, Mr. Masakui served as third secretary, second secretary in Jakarta, Indonesia. He also served as the undersecretary for UNES. He also served for the New Delhi Consul in Johannesburg, South Africa. He also served as the counselor in Dhaka, Bangladesh. Before taking up his present assignment on the 12th of May 2016, he was serving as director in the Ministry of External Affairs in New Delhi. He is going to be presenting today on this very important topic of promoting international value chains through India-Zimbabwe business partnerships. And with those introductory remarks, please put your hands together and welcome His Excellency Masako.
Moderator of the session, Dr. Gazewa, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen. It's difficult to be the first speaker after some lunch because my capability to draw attention comes down by 30%. And I don't know about you, if you have had a nice lunch, how you can sustain this. The topic given to me this afternoon, is promoting international value chain through India-Zimbabwe business partnership. Before I delve into the main presentation, let me try to highlight the main features of what international value chain is. The rise of international value chains has produced a new trade investment services know-how nexus, or the intertwining of trade in intermediates, the movement of capital and ideas and demand for services to coordinate the dispersed production and distribution of goods and services. As such, international value chains are becoming increasingly influential in determining future trade and FDI patterns, as well as growth opportunities. Policies of a country needs to align or respond to this new reality and promote a business environment that not only makes a country attractive for location of international value chains, but also facilitates upgrading opportunities over time. The analysis of this new phenomena has revealed that international value chains do not respond to piecemeal approaches to policy changes. It involves a whole of the supply chain approach. Some of these policies are horizontal in nature, which includes strategic infrastructure and connectivity, a business-friendly environment, flexible labor markets, access to credit, innovation and macroeconomic stability, as well as policies for investment in the education, skills, technology, etc. Other policies that are more targeted, such as tariffs and other trade restrictions, subsidies, local content or export performance requirements, and restrictions on foreign exchange. International value chains offer an opportunity to integrate in the world economy at lower costs. But gains from international value chain participation are not automatic. Benefits of international value chains can also vary considerably depending on whether a country operates at the higher or at the lower end of the value chain. Not all firms and countries are equally involved in international value chains. Some countries participate in many, either as the host country to lead firms or as suppliers of very specific tasks, while others participate very little. These varying degrees of connectedness are determined by many considerations, some of which are fixed, such as a country's geographical location and resource endowment, while others can be shaped by public policy, including human capital, physical infrastructure, and overall investment climate. The growth of international value chains has increased the interconnectedness of economies and led to a growing specialization in specific activities and stages in value chains, rather than in entire industries. Over 70% of global trade is in intermediate goods and services and in capital goods. The income created within international value chains has doubled on average over the last 15 years. Ladies and gentlemen, talking of the India-Zimbabwe business partnership, contributing or promoting international value chain, let me have this to say. If we look at the figure of India-Zimbabwe trade and the investment, the total trade between the two countries in 2015-16 was merely around 229 or 230 million dollars. That is highly skewed in favor of India. Bilateral investment is not as much again. The volume of bilateral trade and investment is not really commensurate with political relations that the two countries enjoy. This clearly indicates that there is, I'm dwelling on the positive side, not on the negative side. This indicates that there's huge potential for more intense engagement to realize the full potential of trade and commercial or economic ties. India's share, again, in the world trade is just 2%, combining merchandise and services, while Zimbabwe's trade share in the global trade is 0.02. So all this, India's share in the global trade and Zimbabwe's share in the global trade put together is merely 2.02%. The above analysis of the IVCs, or international value chains, entails that the market economies are specialized, they are developed with most of the positive public policies in place. When we are talking, and I'm talking now, of where India-Zimbabwe business partnership promoting international value chains is concerned, I see a huge gap between what international value chain system expect or demand and the level of participation of these two countries, our two countries, India and Zimbabwe, in this value chain at this moment. Therefore, while we talk in the context of international value chain, I would like to focus more on the potential areas, sectors that exist for the two countries to build partnership to benefit from such international business or trade structure or system. I'm focusing now on the partnership of these two countries. If we move on to the first slide, I have identified a few of these areas after I arrived in Zimbabwe some 11 months or now 12 months ago. I have been trying to identify which are the areas where Zimbabwe and India can work effectively together so that we can contribute, we can derive, or we can add value to the various products that these two countries possess. And I have identified those areas or products where we are very strong. I think it's good to identify where I'm strong at and where you are strong at and collaborate these two strengths together so that we can add values to this value chain. So the first one is the mining and gemstone. The second is the SME sector. Third is the skill development capacity building. The fourth one is the agri sector, and the fifth one is health sector. Coming to the Indian mineral sector, let me just focus on the gem and jewelry sector, where India is a leading. India gem and jewelry sector is a leading foreign exchange earnings sector, accounting for nearly 15% of India's total merchandise export and contributing 7 to 8% to India's GDP. The volume of export is backed at 39 billion in 2015-16, and also is contributing the workforce to around 3.4 million. India is leading in diamond manufacturing agencies in India that is responsible for this is Gem and Jewelry Export Promotion Council, GJEPC. If you see the export destination of India's gem and jewelry sector, you see that US 23%, Hong Kong 28%, UAE 32%. All these three put together consist of the major the destination of India's export in gem and jewelry. And others put together, if you see the next slide, if the destinations are US, Hong Kong, and UAE, where are they coming from? The rough diamonds are coming from, again, Belgium, UK, UAE, one of the export destination. It is coming in and it is going out, which means there's a value chain where the rough diamond is coming in from the lower end in the chain and then coming to India for polishing and other things, and then it's going out again back to this source where it is coming in from. The US, Hong Kong, where is Zimbabwe? Zimbabwe is supposed to be endowed with one of the 10 top deposits of diamonds, but I don't see any Zimbabwe figuring in this list. Maybe the export from Zimbabwe has gone to these countries and in turn coming in to India, which means I think there's a missing link where if Zimbabwe and India can collaborate, where you can directly source and cut out that middleman or intermediary, the profit or the margin that is in maybe a certification or maybe in grading, if it is cut out, then both countries will benefit. If you see the next slide, that is very clear. And this is a margin in the business, or we call it the international value chain. Where is it going, the minerals or the mining operations to today? I'm talking of this global. The average margin of mining operation is about 16 to 20%. So it's the operation. The margin that you get in the operation is this. The middle market operators or operations, the margin ranges from 1 to 8%. This goes to maybe certification or grading of those products. And last is the retail trade. The maximum margin varies between 11 to 14%. So if this is what the value, international value chain is, where is Zimbabwe figuring? Now India is already there. If you see the next slide, Diamond India dominant player. I don't know why it is not showing, but let me say, yeah, see, foreigner with a share of 60% of world diamond polished market by value. 60%. India does not produce even 10% or the 5% of world's diamond, but we corner the share up to 60% of world diamond polished market by value, 82% by volume in carats, 95% in terms of number of pieces processed. Which means the country, India, specializes in this sector. That is a value chain. In the enumeration, in the introduction of the international value chain, I have, in one of the paras, I have said that you don't have to specialize from A to Z of this value chain, but you specialize in one. India does not have all these minerals, but we specialize in this. So this is one of the value chains. Can you please go on? Now the success story. Why is India successful in this? It's very simple. We have been a traditional craftsmanship. We are skilled in labor in this gem and jewelry sector. A state-of-the-art technology do we have, regular upgradation of this technology. And look at this now. Low operation costs. 1/10 of the West, half of China. Production cost in Zim is $60 to $100 per carat. In India, it is 10 to 12. Coupled with favorable government policy. I think if there is a deposit or resources endowed in Zimbabwe, and if we have the skill, India has the skill to do this, how do we bring down the labor cost? It all depends on technology. It's a skill. It's a training program. Again, I will come to that. But I think we have a huge potential of collaborating in this sector so that the mineral resources you are richly endowed with. I always say this. I don't know, I have been to Israel and Jordan and that part of the world, and I see only desert after desert. You know, it's so dry. And I was just wondering why this land has been in the Bible called the land flowing with honey and milk. I think it should be Zimbabwe here. It's all rich with agricultural resources that you throw anything, it grows there. You have mineral resources, we have everything there. Sorry for the digression. Please carry on the next. Yeah. Zimbabwe's unparalleled mineral resources is high ranked in terms of endowment in platinum, group metals, iron ore, chrome, coal, several gemstones that's resources. Go to the next. I'm just rushing through because this is the map that I got from Highlands State University. You have all the gemstone resources deposits here, according to this map. Everything is there, including diamond and emeralds or whatever is there. Everything is there. So richly endowed. Where are they now? How are they being beneficiated? Can we just move on? Yeah, but there's a wide gap between endowment and internal beneficiation. The discovery of emeralds in Sandawana region in 1950s put Zimbabwe as one of the emeralds capital of the world among Brazil, Zambia, and Colombia and the US. But despite this, gemstone represent one of the least developed mineral sectors in the country. Move on. Yeah, again, diamond. Underdeveloped industry, most of the country's diamond wealth is exported raw, which was mentioned in the first and second session. And the locations of ore are there. And of course, in 2016, there's ZCTC came into being. Diamond mining history is there, 1962 to 65. That is just pre-Smith's regime, 3 years. DBS had come in. I was disheartened to see this statistics, 1993 to 2006, long 13 years, allow me to be undiplomatic and emotional. When I went through the report, this is not an authenticated report from the government source, but when I read that report, because I was Googling while I'm preparing this presentation, that DBS has come in and prospected for a long 13 years, and they've been collecting samples from the same site called Marang, which you are producing now. And they've been taking these samples, not in kilograms, in tons for short 13 years, and concluded that it is not viable. And that happened when Zimbabwe insisted that a geologist expert from Zimbabwe has to be inserted in that team. I don't know, I have no words. It hurt me more than it angered me. It is not mine. It is not India's. It is yours. But maybe I have become a half Zimbabwean here. When I read that, it just gave me a sleepless night. I just think of it again, and even now I cannot reconcile myself how this happened. The company of that repute could do that. I don't know. I just can't say anything. But that's how it is. Now, I'm coming to the value chain, but before we speak of the value chain, why did it happen? Why did it happen? Because the valuation knowledge, the expertise was not there. So let's start first thing first. Let's start from valuation. Even before we talk of the international value chain, let's talk of valuation. If any Zimbabwean or one Zimbabwean expert would have been there to know the resources that you have and evaluate it correctly, this would not have happened. Don't trust me. Don't trust an Indian. For that matter, don't trust any foreign expert to come in and evaluate for you. When I'm talking of partnership, let's talk of the friendly nations, the partner nations. Call me India for that matter, or England or China, whoever it may be, to come and empower your people, the Zimbabweans, expert, not to evaluate for you, where he will come and say, that, oh, this costs, I think I evaluate and this is for 1 million word, where actually it is 50 million word. Now, where is the question of value chain? If you are not talking of this valuation first, then where is the question of this valuation? I think we need to think seriously on this. Now, I would like to say that we are happy to cooperate in this sector. There has been an MOU proposal from Ministry of Mines. There has been a proposal also to set up an incubation center within the mining college, mining university. I think we are taking it very seriously. And Ministry of Mine, after we had this session 2 months ago, took just 2 weeks to come up with this proposal. I was very happy with that. That reflects the seriousness of the ministry to seriously go on to beneficiate or to collaborate and to explore and exploit the mineral resources that you are endowed with. I'm running very fast. Next is now coming to the SME sector. I think, again, SME is our strength in India. We have 51 million units. It is contributing how much? The 37% to our GDP. And then it is employing 117 million. It contributes 40% to our export. It contributes 45% to our manufacturing. Please, next slide. This is the ministerial structure in India, the MSME, Ministry of Medium, Small and Micro Enterprises. So if you see this, these are the agencies that operate under the Ministry of MSME, and one of which is National Small Industrial Corporation. I think these are the offices, attached offices, or the one-stop shop, which we have been talking in the first and second session, which is required so that this will help facilitate the capacity of the new entrepreneurs or young entrepreneurs or newly formed businesses. Can you please move on? Yeah, this is what it is. Now, let me just briefly summarize this, that NSIC, National Small Industrial Corporation, it has a scheme, or it is an organization that empowers trained entrepreneurs, potential entrepreneurs, and it links up when the entrepreneur is trained after 3 months or 2 months with the most rudimentary, I'm sorry, English is not my first language, most rudimentary machines. Now, this man who is trained does not have resources. He has no access to bank. He has no credibility to approach bank for the loans. So NSIC links up with bank because they are registered with certain number of banks, and they get the loan issued. This loan directly goes to the machine vendors who supplies machine to this entrepreneur. And then when he got this machine in his courtyard, in his home, with his family members, he needs raw material. NSIC supplies raw material to him on credit. And when he starts manufacturing it, producing the products, then NSIC links up market for his products. I think this is a one-stop shop which we are talking about. And Ministry of SME here was talking of formalization of SME sector is in sync with what we are doing here. We have, I hope you are aware, we have in Waterforce area, incubation center is coming up. We have in HIT, Harare Institute of Technology, we have Indo-Zim Technology Center, again under Ministry of SME, which was given as a grant, machines, 5 million worth, and we are in the process of upgrading this at the cost of 3 million again. In principle, it has been approved in my government, and now we are pushing for the financial approval. Can we move on? My time is running short, but I'll be very quick. Now, collaboration in the higher and education sector, capacity building in the government to government, we have offered 180 slots. ITEC, that is India Technical and Economic Cooperation, which is directed and targeted to capacitating or empowering or upgrading the skill of people who are already in the government sector. We also are also collaborating at the university level. Just to mention this example, Harare Institute of Technology has signed an MOU with 6 universities in India, and 70 MTech students have come back to the institute after finishing the graduation. 70 are still there, of which 20 are doctoral students. And because of this, I was told by the Vice Chancellor of the Indian Harare Institute of Technology that they are starting MTech courses in HIT in 15 disciplines. I think this is a kind of collaboration that we want to talk about in higher education, where the research done or the studies done at the university can be commercialized, can be taken, the innovation can be taken to industries. And I'm planning my best to replicate this model to other universities also. Next. Agri sector, again, is another huge potential. I've told you, you have huge resources in agri sector. And you're talking of this morning, there was a common agriculture program, which is talking of production of maize, more than 2 million. But if you can diversify the agri products also to pearls and lentils, which will have a permanent market in India. Government of India has signed MOUs with the Mozambique government. We also have signed an MOU with the Kenyan government and many more other governments who we have said that we will guarantee market in India if you produce lentils and purses. Again, in the technology side, we have these tractors which are at the affordable, reasonably good quality and affordable price. I think these are all areas where we have a huge potential for collaboration. Next. Health sector, I think this is the last one which I would like to emphasize. I think it is my duty as the ambassador of India to promote my health sector and promote medical tourism to India. You are aware that many patients from African countries are going to India every year, from Zimbabwe alone. Last year in 2016, more than 500 patients have gone to India. But what I have realized is that why, if we are a partner country, why do we extract from Zimbabwe and Africa region? Why can we come out? Our corporate, I'm talking of the corporate hospitals or private hospitals. So last 10 months, I have been pursuing and persuading both the governments, both in India as well as here, because there is a huge resistance from some corners in Zimbabwe also for any other foreign, not only Indian, but for foreign hospitals and experts to come in here. I said it's not win-lose situation. So my hospitals, if they come in here, I have told them that if you come in here, if you are talking of business, if you earn $1 in India or you earn $1 in Zimbabwe or in Botswana or anywhere, it's business, it's the same thing. Money is money. So if you are talking of business, why don't you come in here? By coming in here, you come out from India, you become an international brand. By coming out here, you are giving service to the people here, you earn goodwill. If you earn goodwill, it is good for me. Let me also be selfish, because being the representative of India here, I will also earn some goodwill. And from the other side, from the Zimbabwean side, if you are sending patients to India, 500 of them, how much is being spent on airfare alone? If you are coming in here, you don't have to spend on airfare, you don't have to be accompanied by a person, it is your homeland. Now, if a hospital of that level, which is in India, where your patients are going to, come here, then what happens? Other African countries are also going, Botswana is going, patients from Mozambique is going. They will not go to India, they will come in here by spending just $200 and don't have to bring in a person to assist him. Because this is your own culture, the African culture, Zimbabwe, Botswana, or Mozambique, I don't know much difference. They will come in here. This is what I have been trying to persuade and convince my people and your people on both sides. We're working very hard on this. Hopefully something happens this year, and with the blessing of all and the support of all of you here. Can you move on, please? This is all? Yeah. Working together, this is, I have just taken the picture on the gym and jewelry side. Move on. For mutual benefit, I think let's not, for mutual benefit, let's benefit each other first. not to promote international value chains, but let's benefit for mutual benefit. Let's work together. And next, in partnership. I like this word. Thank you so much, organizers, for putting this word, partnership. This is a model that India tries to always promote with the friendly nations, that let's work in partnership. Let's not be transactional. Let's not be extractive. But we will work together. And towards what? Towards mutual benefit. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. You know, it was difficult to stop you talking because everything that you are saying was just music to my ears. I think there are so many take-homes from his presentation, and I will not attempt to summarize. Suffice to say, I mean, the last couple of slides said it all. When he said, you know, we need to strive for mutual benefit in terms of these partnerships. For us to benefit from these, you know, partnerships, the value chains, we can only gain from them if we're very strategic. I think that's what you said. We have to be strategic. We also need to ensure that, you know, we've done quite a lot of homework. I think the other take-home from your presentation was the fact that the endowment, I think you said there's a big difference between endowment and beneficiation. So the question everyone should be asking themselves is, of the diamonds that we have, of the endowments, what is the percentage that we're actually beneficiating? Because it seems like we're exporting most of our diamonds raw. And therefore, the value will not come to Zimbabwe. It will go to the other countries. But I'm gratified to hear that India is a friend of Zimbabwe and they're willing to work with us. And I think we just need to make sure that we sit down and, you know, craft our strategies in such a way that we benefit. In fact, it reminds me of a story when my mother was not so well and she had to have 2 knee replacement surgeries, I think, you know, within about 6 months. So there was always this debate, should we have it done here or should she go to India? And I know a number of people have gone to India for these very successful operations. But then the question is the cost. You know, this is the issue now. I think you highlighted the issue of cost to say the cost, you know, of value addition. When you compare with Zimbabwe, I mean, it's quite significant, the difference, you know, between $60 and $100 per carat, and between 10 and 12 in India. I mean, I think we need to think about that and apply our minds, what the cost of value addition is doing to our industrialization drive. So thank you very, very much for your presentation. We'll move along to the next presentation. Our next presenter is also a very eminent person. He's in fact an international person from his profile that I've got in front of me. His name is Thomas Zondo Sakala. Thomas Zondo Sakala is an experienced development banker who was appointed the Chief Executive Officer of the Infrastructure Development Bank of Zimbabwe, IDBZ, in September of 2015. He is the former Vice President, Country and Regional Programs, African Development Bank, and his career with African Development Bank spans over 30 years. Mr. Sakala has lived, he has studied, and he has worked in Zimbabwe. He has also worked in Cote d'Ivoire, in Tunisia, in Nigeria, in the UK, and he holds a BSc honors and a master's in economics from University of Ibadan in Nigeria. He also undertook research work on the anticipated challenges of land and agricultural transformation in post-independent Zimbabwe at the Institute of Development Studies, University of Sussex in the United Kingdom. Ladies and gentlemen, Please help me welcome Mr. Sakala, who is going to be speaking on closing infrastructure gaps for industrial development in Zimbabwe, the critical steps. Please help me welcome Mr. Sakala.
Good afternoon. These introductions can be very intimidating. His Excellency highlighted the fact that he felt challenged because he was speaking after lunch, and maybe it's difficult to hold people to be following closely. I am more challenged because it's not just after lunch, but the whole day has been very exciting. We have had preachers, we have had professors, ambassadors, and I'm just wondering, do I have anything new to say? Especially given a topic such as this, which when you go back to the experiences of African countries, right from independence, we've been talking about these things. And even as far back as more recent 2008, the AU conference had as its theme, industrializing Africa. Somehow we never seem to get to actually doing it. So I hope some of the comments I'm going to make, some which might be a bit mischievous, will provoke something in us. So we can move from just elegant seminars to actually doing some of the things and raising the kinds of questions that the ambassador just raised, which are very painful. Let me make a few introductory passing comments. In the last session, we were told about the role of local authorities and that they have a critical role to play, especially in this effort of ease of business. Having listened to that and my experience in the last 2 days, I've been to several townships here in Bulawayo, in Gwanda, and in Plumtree. And I want to congratulate all of you who are here, who are from those towns. They are very clean. I took photos of streets, bus stations, petrol stations, and I also saw the kind of effort a small town like Plumtree is making in terms of servicing and actually funding infrastructure. This is very different from Harare, Marondera, Rusape, Mutari, Masvingo, Chinoi. You almost think we're in different countries. So let's hope we will join you in doing some of the things that you are doing in this part of the world. The other thing Dr. Sibanda touched on, this issue of illicit flows. Now, when you use the word illicit, it immediately implies that there is some mischief. Maybe I'll also say, besides illicit flows, there is undervalued flows. And Dr. Mulambo and I, we worked in ADB in virtually all the countries over the years. Some of the reasons as to why we have these undervalued flows is we really don't pay much attention when we negotiate agreements, concessions, contracts. You have had situations where a concession is negotiated between a minister, his advisor, permanent secretary, and in front of him or her, you have a battery of professionals, accountants, engineers, lawyers who are negotiating. And so as a result, the other side, the geologists, they knew what was in the ground. Probably the African side didn't know. And the kinds of agreements we end up with brings about some of the painful situations that the ambassador has highlighted. UK has no diamonds. Belgium has no diamonds. And yet for India to polish diamonds, they have to import them from UK and Belgium. I don't know what we should do to counteract that, but those are some of the real practical problems we face. Now let me move to my presentation, and maybe you should rush to slide number 9. Dr. Mlambo, I think I liked the way the professorial simplicity and insightfulness he brought about. And he said our solution is in the factories. And in actual fact, for those factories to really bring us value, we need to address the issue of infrastructure. And that's what I've been asked to address. And I like this quotation. I've used it before, and I know Honorable Chinamasa used it during the party conference in 2015 in Victoria Falls. And those who can see, it's very clear. This is from Tidian Cham, a nephew of late President Houphouët-Boigny. He is an Ivorian Senegalese French citizen. And he's currently CEO of Credit Suisse. Before that, he was CEO of Prudential PLC and the first black to be CEO of a FTSE 100 company in the world. But what's also interesting, and I'll come back to it, before he went out to these places, for about 5 years, he was the CEO of what in Côte d'Ivoire they call the National Bureau of Technical Studies, which reports to the president, and I'll come back to that later on in my presentation. But I like what he said. You cannot control your economic destiny if you are not able to mobilize savings and then turn them into productive investment. If you can't develop infrastructure, if you can't develop the energy, if you can't provide clean water, if you don't have roads, you absolutely have no future. And I think it's something we should always remind ourselves. And there are two issues here, the importance of infrastructure and also the importance of the sources of funding for that infrastructure. My presentation is going to be in about 9 sections. I'll try to move as quickly as possible. I don't want us to sleep here. The first slide, can you move to slide 3, please? We are talking slide 3. Yes, industrial development, and just to make sure we are on the same page, how really can we tell that it is happening? We've been told about technological transformation, which is necessary, and hopefully which should lead to greater national production, and also transforming. We don't want just to have SMEs, MSMEs, they should also move to being big corporates. And we should, of course, be seeing our economy moving from being labor-intensive to more capital technology. The irony, I think, again, is what Dr. Mlambo highlighted in the morning, where probably we seem to have more service than we should be having in manufacturing. Before, actually, at a time when our manufacturing had industrialized in a way. So it's a bit of a contradiction. But for this to happen, there are a number of things which should be in place. And quickly, as in the slide, institutional and policy framework need to be correct. We need to make sure that people are trained as skills. India is helping us in that. We need to make sure that our transport and communication systems are really up to standard. And we really need, as I said, from independence. Every African country cried over the fact that we are primary produce exporters, but we don't seem to have moved very far from that. And infrastructure is important. And we need to move into the phase of what we call development state. Politics should be not just about power, politics should be about delivering on specific development mandates. If we do that, I think we'll be able to ensure that we achieve the SDGs. We will have more inclusive, sustainable growth, and of course, create more wealth for our people. Next slide. Zimbabwe industrialization strategy, I don't think I need to go into that because the Minister of Industry and Commerce have been talking about it. But just to reiterate, like I say, these aspirations are not new. They are not peculiar to Zimbabwe. But we seem to be confronted with a challenge that seems to be stubbornly elusive. So probably there are a number of things that we have not been doing. And in our case, Zimbabwe, we have actually been experiencing serious deindustrialization. Isn't it a bit of a contradiction for a country that wants to industrialize? We actually had an iron and steel company that has collapsed. We actually have, from the map we were shown, we have all that it takes to have a thriving iron and to have a thriving steel industry. And I think some of you who were in an earlier presentation a year or so ago by, Afroshin chief executive, he actually did point that out, how within Zimbabwe we can easily move to that level of development using our own resources. So, what are the challenges that we face in Zimbabwe? And I'll look at the next slide very, very quickly. You know better. You are from industry. You are from the private sector. Antiquated machinery. And just to quote some of the things, the facts, 70% we understand of companies in Midlands, 50% of companies in Blawa, those that remain, 46% of companies in Manicaland, and 16% in Harare have equipment which is over 40 years, and this is a CZI report I'm made to understand. In the morning, we were told that capacity utilization has moved from 34% to 47%, but for heaven's sake, this is below 50%. It is an achievement, it is a movement, but we are talking of below 50% capacity utilization. Dr. Mulambo did highlight the issue of capital flight and fall in foreign direct investment. In the 1990s, FDI in Zimbabwe used to be 20% of GDP. At the moment, we're at less than 1%. And there is a very high cost of doing business in Zimbabwe. And it's manifested not just in the actual cost in dollar terms, but also critically in processes. For us in IDBZ, I hope I'm not getting controversial. In IDBZ, we have also been working on housing development, servicing sites. But you do have somewhere another arm of government where they also come and get some of the products virtually free. Obviously, it makes the cost of servicing much higher because somebody else has to pay for that free donation. There is also the issue of perceived high country risk profile, policy inconsistencies and discord. As I said, I've worked on every African country. And one of the most peculiar experiences I've had is that in Zimbabwe is the only country I know where you have ministers, same cabinet, same political party, who fight in public about policy differences. And of course, if you are an investor and you are listening to that, it gives very conflicting signals. And you definitely think twice before you come to Zimbabwe to invest. So when we are talking about ease of doing business, there are also some of these other sensitive areas, soft areas that also need to be addressed. We have had some misunderstanding about indigenization, really how it is interpreted and implemented. And in the morning, we are happy to hear that in the EPZ, you can have 100% foreign-owned. His Excellency did issue a statement which clarified, but all the partners, including our most favored partners, are also asking, let's go a step further. It should now be reflected in the Indigenization Act. Unless we do that, it remains a presidential statement. It is not on the books as it were. So these are some of the things we need to address as a country. There is also the issue of lack of competitiveness. For example, just the first line, compared to Botswana and other countries in the region, Zimbabwe has the highest tax rate. In Botswana, the highest level is 25%, and here we're at 37%. If you look at interest rates, In the region, the average is 5 to 7%, according to Zeparo. In Zimbabwe, it's 15 to 20%, but critically, it's 15 to 20% on the US dollar alone. This is not on a Zim dollar or a kwacha. It's 15 to 20% on a US dollar loan. And we also have some legacy loans, including even in the IDBZ, where interest rates on US dollar were as high as 30, 35, 40%. Nowhere in the world can you do business at that level of interest rates on a US dollar loan. We also need to make sure we get long-term financing, long-term and where possible, concessional financing for bulk infrastructure. And again, just to give an example, Zambia and Botswana have secured funding from Japan and African Development Bank, African Development Fund for the Kazungula Bridge. The Zambia loan, which is over 50 million, is to be repaid over 50 years, 10 years grace, 0 interest rate. Now let's compare with the terms that we are trying to get for our own similar projects, like even, let's say, the Beit Bridge modernization. So we need to be in the space that allows us to mobilize long-term funding for our bulk infrastructure. Now, what are the infrastructure bottlenecks? Let's move specific, just the infrastructure. Again, issues of energy have been talked about. And here again, we need to be more ambitious. The challenge before us is not just to address the issue of power cuts. And it's very easy. Now we have achieved it, but we have achieved it with an industry that is operating at less than 50% capacity. If our industry picks up, then the crunch, the real challenge of our power supply in the country will reappear again. I'm happy, of course, to note that both our various ministries as well as IDBZ are working on efforts to increase power generation. There are issues of transport, the railway line. We need to do something about NRZ. There is no way we can talk seriously about beneficiation, about industrialization, if we don't have the NRZ working efficiently. Road transport, yes, but it has its limits. And we need the NRZ to get back to full functionality. Railway transport is 40% cheaper than road transportation. When we look at other infrastructure, water charges in Zimbabwe are the least competitive in the region. In the ICT, we need to address fragmentation. And I think before, again, we focus too much on our cousins in the private sector. We really need to address fragmentation in the public or public-related companies. Net1, Telo1, Telecel, Zanet, Africom, Powertel, etc. These are all within the realm of the public sector. And we really need to rationalize the investments in these various companies. And our parastatals need definitely, including IDBZ, to be performing much more efficiently. If we do this, then we can begin to move seriously to making sure that our factories are working. We will reduce the high cost of production. We will then see greater productivity. We will see greater competitiveness, increased employment, and of course, increased revenue to the fiscus. Now, the next slide is just reports on responses from the business sector in terms of what they see as the greatest challenges to making them deliver efficiently. Poor road infrastructure, 15% of the respondent, and then access to the ports, 11%, power cuts, shortages, 23%, inefficient railway, etc., etc. Let's move. Again, on the infrastructure bottlenecks, according to the World Bank report of 2012, Zimbabwe requires about $33 billion within the next decade to address its infrastructure needs. And as you can see from the slide, electricity alone, we need $11.3 billion. transport $13.39 billion, water $1.81 billion, and telecoms $6.75 billion. This is a lot of money. So where will this money come from? Again, another study, next slide. The African Development Bank in 2009, did identify what should be considered as the key players in financing infrastructure during the period 2010-2020, and they have expected percentages. Government was expected to put in 12% of that amount of money that we require. State enterprises, 18%. Local authorities, 19%. Donors or international agencies, 19%. And, as was said in the morning, private sector will be the largest contributor with 32%. So it's important that we create an environment that allows the private sector to take those decisions to make investments. The next slide, we said government has an important role to play besides facilitation, but also putting in resources. And the next slide shows annual budgetary allocations to infrastructure in 2014. Angola was devoting 8%, South Africa 7% to 8%, and Zimbabwe, we are down the ladder with the likes of Sierra Leone with just 1%. We were putting in 1%, 1 to 2% into infrastructure investment as of 2014. So to move from that, we require a lot of efforts. Other sources, next slide. Other sources of funding, we can't do this alone, and the previous slide showed the various potential sources. We need to get support from development finance institutions at home, regionally, internationally. We also need to get funding support from bilateral institutions, whether it's Indian government bilateral or other areas. PPPs are coming in, and it's an area we need to work into, but it requires a lot of capacity on our part to really properly negotiate. Because in the final analysis, PPP is basically a mode of procurement, and you need to get it right. Government budget allocations need to go up. We have bond issuances, but our market is really not that deep. We also need to do more in terms of mobilizing our own savings and, of course, other sources. We have our friends, China, India, who have been with us during very difficult period. But as has already been demonstrated, we can actually build on that and realize more value than we have been doing up to now. Now, once we've got the funding, next slide, what really do we need to do to make sure that this money is used effectively to deliver the results that we want? We need to have clarity in terms of what is our national infrastructure development strategy, policy. We need to make sure that government ministries work together at the same time around the same table. And this is why I cited the example of where Mr. Chiam used to work, that National Bureau of Technical Studies. What they do in Ivory Coast is that agency reports to the presidency. And a few projects that are considered of national priority are managed by that agency, not by the line ministries. However, each line ministry is expected to bring its contribution timely without bureaucratic mischief, etc. So, if we look at our Beit Bridge modernization project, we need Ministry of Transport, we need local government, we need ZIMRA, we need immigration, we need other players. And if it was in Côte d'Ivoire, that project would not be left with one particular ministry. It will be in this agency. And this agency is the one that reports through the presidency to cabinet as to what is happening, where are the challenges, and what needs to be done. They do everything to ensure that technical studies preparation are done properly, transparently. They bring it to financial close. they do the procurement, and they supervise. And I think it's a model we can learn. I'm not saying we should do exactly that, but I think it will help us clear some of the challenges we have been facing. Even now, we have Tokwe Mkosi, which is completed. But how do we really take advantage of the water in Tokwe Mkosi? What's the input from parks? What's the input from Ministry of Tourism? What's the input from Ministry of Agriculture? We were talking about fisheries, etc. in the morning. What's the input from lands? What's the input from Ministry of Energy? Because there's also a potential for power. And we shouldn't be talking about these things now. We should have been talking about them when we knew the dam was going to be completed. And again, this is where we need to have some of these higher level agencies that can help bring everybody together without having to fight as to who is more important. So it's important to have coordination. It's also important to put money in project preparation. Recently, I attended a meeting organized by COMESA with a new Chinese agency that is now looking at how to prepare projects in Africa to bankability in order to commit the 60 billion that was talked about in South Africa. Besides making the declarations that we as Africa have got promise for 60 billion, the Chinese are now asking, but where are the projects? And unless we put our own money in a very focused manner to prepare these projects for bankability, some will get the money, some will not. And it's important we move to that. The last part of the slide talks about conditions of doing business to attract investment. That has already been touched in the morning. But the first bullet to me is very important. Re-engagement is important. Zimbabwe cannot remain an island. And even our partners do advise us to think about that and think about that seriously. So we should not be debating about whether Zimbabwe should re-engage with the rest of the world. We should be worried about the conditions, the terms, the details. That is important, I agree. We need to protect our interests. But we cannot finance all these projects with our own internal resources alone. It's not going to happen. And other areas that have already been highlighted in the morning. We will need to build and strengthen the various key institutions, and of course, including the IDBZ. Examples, to come to the end of my presentation. We had very good, interesting examples this morning, again from India, also Namibia in the morning. I liked the way they facilitate even immigration. I also liked the fact that the EPZ doesn't have to be geographically defined. It's what you are permitted to do, irrespective of where you are on the territory of the country. You will still enjoy the benefits that go with it. And energy really is critical. As somebody once said, you cannot develop in darkness. You can't create jobs in darkness. You can't industrialize without energy. And so it's an area that we need really to pay close attention to. And just an example is Rwanda, as in the slide. They have tripled access to energy from 9% in 2010 to 31% in 2017. So in just about 7 years. And they are doing more to address that issue because they've determined that it's a critical input to their industrialization. Ethiopia, again, is a very interesting one. They've been doing a lot in terms of energy, in terms of transport. Again, with the Chinese support. But I think the difference with them is their projects are prepared, the planning is very rigorous, and the focus on implementation is absolutely up to date, is excellent. And I think we can learn from that. But not everybody learns from examples. Now, what's the role of the IDBZ? We see ourselves, and this is the last slide, we are ready to play a facilitation role, in particular in project preparation, in packaging projects, in resource mobilization efforts, in procurement, contract negotiations, and project implementation. In our experience with the African Development Bank, the problem why procurement becomes such a sensitive issue is people want to limit the number of people in the know for obvious reasons. But it doesn't always create value for everybody. So we have our sectors of mandate, which is energy, transport, water and sewerage, ICT, and housing infrastructure. We don't do the superstructure, but the infrastructure. And we look forward to working with some of you, with the various municipal authorities, as well as with the private sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sakala. I think you will agree with me when I say that this conference would not have been complete without the Infrastructure Development Bank coming to present on this important topic. I think he covered a number of aspects, but I think what is quite glaring in his presentation is the gap. You know, the gap between what we are putting in terms of infrastructure development and what we need, 33 billion, and we are only putting 1 to 2%. For me, that is a stark reality that we have to accept. And we need to see how we can close that gap. He also lamented quite a lot in terms of some of the gaps that we have in terms of our infrastructure. We cannot develop if we are in the dark. The gap is there and it needs to be closed. I also wanted to thank you so much, Mr. Sakala, for highlighting the fact that you are prepared to support infrastructure development in Zimbabwe. However, I think he also highlighted the soft issues in terms of the preparation that we need to do. It just doesn't happen. There's the soft issues that need to be dealt with in terms of preparing, good papers before we eventually get there. So thank you very much for that. This brings us to our last presentation. And another great eminent speaker is coming. And in all of these things that we have been talking about, whether we're trying to create the linkages in terms of our partnerships from India, or whether it's about infrastructure development, at the end of the day, we have to manage our risk. So this is why it's so important for us today that we have somebody who is coming from the insurance sector to share with us the insights that they have. So I now have Mr. Nyabadza. Mr. Nyabadza is the Managing Director of TriStar Insurance. He is the former operations executive of FMRE Property, a company he was instrumental in setting up. He started off as an assistant underwriter at FBC Reinsurance Company before becoming Bulawayo branch manager in 2003. Mr. Nyabadza holds a master's degree in business administration from the Eastern and Southern African Management Institute in Tanzania and a Bachelor of Commerce honors degree in insurance and risk management from the National University of Science and Technology here in Zimbabwe. Mr. Nyabadza has a vast experience in reinsurance and has attended several courses, including courses that have been run by the Renaissance Financial Holdings Leadership Academy, by Aon, Benfield Global Clients Reinsurance Seminar, and Reinsurance Solutions Specialty Insurance Seminar, which was held in Mauritius. Please help me welcome Mr. Nyabadza, who will be speaking about insurance and sustainability of industrial development today. Put your hands together for him, please.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is quite a difficult time to be presenting, especially when people have had some lusu in the over lunch. but I will not take too much of your time. I would like to start by acknowledging the presence of the Commissioner of Insurance among us, Mr. Tendai Karonga, as well as our director in IPEC, the Director for Insurance and Microinsurance, Mr. Pupuraito Garepi, who are sitting in with us today. My presentation will take a bit of a different approach from what we have been hearing in the morning, because I'm here to talk about that distant cousin in the financial services industry that isn't talked too much about, which is the insurance services, but which has a big role to play in the development of industry as we go forward. I think the issue of industrialization, like the previous speaker has spoken about, is an issue that comes on and off when it is convenient for governments to talk about it. But in the long run, sometimes things are not done. But I'm happy today that in terms of the presentations that have been done, there are actual concrete steps that are being done. I think that is the first thing. And secondly, I think I seem to see some of our ministers and some of our people in government adopting a more hands-on approach, where they are actually moving within the sectors of the economy where they need to make a change. So it is with that in mind that we are more upbeat about what will happen as we move forward. In terms of my presentation, I will basically talk about insurance and how it can aid in a sustained industrial development. I think sometimes we make the mistake, and I would say, because I've grown up with a couple of politicians, of thinking that politicians always want to lie to us. But I think the truth of the matter is that most of them actually are well-intentioned in what they mean to say. But I think when they go back to the drawing board and they talk to the experts and they realize that some of the things cannot be done, I think that is where they need to improve. They need to come back to us and tell us that there's a lot of things that need to be addressed before we move forward. And one of the biggest issues that will affect the way we move forward is really the issue of risk. In all the deliberations that have been made and in most of the plans that are espoused, in most of the manifestos, there is a lot of talk about things that need to be done, but there isn't too much attention to the attendant risk that happens when you take on massive endeavors. And so today I would like to proffer a suggestion that our insurance industry in Zimbabwe is able to take care of some of those needs and to be able to move us forward. In terms of my presentation, I will talk briefly about in basic terms, the concept of insurance and how it works. And then I'll talk about how insurance actually promotes sustainable industrial development. And then I'll talk about the evolving face of risks. What are the new risks that are coming on the horizon? And what are we doing to manage them? And then finally, I'll give a few thoughts on what I think we need to do in order to be able to move forward. Basically, risk permeates every aspect of our life. When you choose to do something, there's a risk involved. When you choose not to do something, there's the risk of that inaction. So you have to make a choice. But the key is to be able to manage those risks. And we are industrialists. We have had a lot of deep papers in terms of specifics. But I think sometimes we are letting ourselves down by trying to handle some of the things that can be handled elsewhere, that can be transferred to other risk carriers. When risk is upon you, you inevitably have to deal with it. You first of all may avoid, like I already said, you may make attempts to reduce it, or you may transfer it to someone else. And I'm happy to say that we have a very developed insurance industry in Zimbabwe with significant players that can take on the risks that industry faces on a day-to-day basis. There are numerous risks that we can talk about. There are issues to do. We can talk about illnesses which affect your workforce and their ability to continue coming to work. But sadly, you find that in some of our institutions, instead of purchasing a medical insurance, there are other mechanisms which are internalized, and in the end, we then hear about these scandals when they are not properly administered. And the key is that they are not being done by people who have the expertise to administer those insurance funds. There are also issues of natural disasters, which I think in Zimbabwe we have not really given enough thought to. But I think after a couple of tremors that we have seen, the Vice President spoke in the morning that while we are celebrating the successes of command, there's a $200 million bill that we have also inherited because of the flooding and the weather conditions, which are changing at a very difficult pace. And then there are issues to do with debt, which is something that we need to prepare for as we go about our business in industry. We find that sometimes companies burden themselves with the obligation of making plans when someone passes on. And then there are accidents in many different forms. Some of them natural, like I've already said, and then some of them not, which are man-made disasters. And I think from an African perspective, I need not explain what we mean by man-made disasters. I think we know who they are. Then on the concept of insurance itself, it's a very basic principle. It's nothing new to the way that we have always lived. We have always come together as African people when there is a problem, and we have pulled our resources together. But as we developed, as we industrialize, we can no longer manage that risk within our communities because they are now bigger than what we could have fathomed. And so we need to come up with a more organized plan. I think we all come from families and extended families where people have been assisting each other maybe to pay fees and so on. But at the end of the day, there's then that errant uncle who moves to town and then they don't contribute. So those systems cannot work as we develop. So instead, we need to use proper systems like insurance. And the good thing about insurance is that it's a well-regulated financial service, and we continue to see improvement in that area as we speak, as the regulation continues to be strengthened. I think we have heard in the financial crisis how it has affected banks, but we have not really had too many catastrophes when insurance companies have actually gone under in the global financial crisis, because the model is different and the regulation there allows us to be able to sustain what we need to do. I'll move on now to why insurance matters for industrial development. But maybe before I do that, I think there's a misconception when we talk about the concept of insurance, because it's basically paying small premiums into a pool, paying claims, and then if there's a surplus, it goes to the insurance company. If it cannot fund it, then it has to resort to its shareholder funds or its capital. And what we have often seen, and the approach that we have often seen being taken, is that people in companies and in business seem to think that insurance is on the one side and business is on the other side. But in essence, it is a partnership, because there is risk on both sides. When industry is not looking after its risk, for example, if infrastructure is not being maintained and we begin to see accidents on a more regular basis, the impact is that the premiums come up, because all the insurance company does is to manage the collective risks of people. And with that comes also the responsibility for insurance companies to properly use proper pricing models so that risks that are different can be priced differently. But why does insurance matter for industrial development? I think we've spoken about examples of how insurance can contribute to sustain industry. Unfortunately for us, we have all these good plans, all these projects that we do, and sometimes we are unable to sustain them. We have a start-stop mentality, because we go for 2 good years with the rains, and the 3rd year when it's a drought, everything falls back. The farmer who had 2 good seasons is now destitute. They need money to do that. And we are saying there are insurance products that can be able to do that. So the biggest value of insurance within an economy is its ability to mitigate risks and losses, and it does that in a number of ways. First of all, it assures financial security and peace of mind, in that if an adverse occurrence happen to one unit of the economy, the insurance companies come in and they pay, and then that business can continue to go on. But aside that, insurance also supports the things that the mechanisms that governments have already put in place to support its people. For example, we have NASA in within this economy, which basically looks at the lowest level of compensation, workmen's compensation. But above that, there are insurance products that you can put on so that you can be able to achieve the same benefit. But in all this, insurance, because it is interlinked, when we insure the risks from the market, we are also linked to other external markets, as it were. the reinsurance provisions, and you find that for a major risk, a big deal of a factory that is here in Zimbabwe, you find that there are participants who are in London, who are in Egypt, who are all over the place, so that if that factory were to go down, all those people do contribute to make sure that we are made good and we've got financial inflows or foreign currency inflows that come into the country. So it is very well organized and, like I already said, very well regulated. And it is that risk management input that can make a difference to the way that we are doing things in industry. Because when you bring in your risk, it could also actually be an indicator of whether we should go ahead with some of these programs or not. Because when you bring in a risk and we assess it, then we tell you to put firefighting equipment, we tell you to do all sorts of things. Because risk in itself has a cost. You can choose to pay small amounts now, or if something adverse happens, you can shut down or you have to bring in money to be able to service that. And we know that that is not very easy to do in an environment like ours. I've just put a slide there to show the global situation, this being an international conference. And what you see there are the disasters, the global disasters in red. The red part shows the total economic loss, which is the financial loss that that has been aggregated, and the gray ones show just how much of that is insured. So you can tell from that gap from 2005, 2016, and even on a 10-year average, that only a small part of the risks that we assume are actually insured. And that means that the gap between that gray and the red is money that could have been used to build infrastructure, is money that could have been used for social programs, it's money that could have been used for other investments. So it is very important that we think about insurance and adequate insurance for that matter as we are planning about how we proceed with this industrialization. I think the other, going on to the next slide, the other way that insurance plays a part despite the risk mitigation efforts is that insurance provides financial stability and economic prosperity to a nation. And it does that in many ways. First of all, we stimulate demand. We've already said that if a loss occurs and then you are paid, it means that you continue with your consumptive pattern. It's not disrupted. And one of our dreams is to see every man and woman in the village having some sort of insurance policy. We've done very well with funeral. I think funerals are no longer as much a headache as it were. And the reason why this is important is that we have embarked on a model that relies very much on the people in the village for our raw materials. We have seen how just a good harvest can change the focus from 1.7% to 3.7% in terms of economic growth. So we cannot ignore that because as industry, we want to go and contract those people for the different products that have been spoken about. His Excellency was talking about lentils that are required in India, and these are things that can be done at household level. But we need that security for it to be possible from the funders' perspective, from the the people that are working from their perspective. They want to know that if we have a drought, we will be able to recover. If the monies don't come in, is there adequate credit insurance in place? If the people are sick, the people working in the field are sick, do they have health insurance to look after them? And do they have keyman insurance which can come in to look after the loans? So those are issues that we have to grapple with. And then, as we all know, when insurance monies are paid, contrary to popular belief, they are put in a pool, and that pool is basically an insurance fund. Our regulators will tell you that those funds are actually separate, the shareholder funds and the policyholder funds. And those funds now are able to stimulate economic growth. Some of the issues that we are grappling with that require funding from an industrial perspective, from a strategic imperative at national level, can be addressed by the savings that we have in the market. And it is not a coincidence that the most prosperous nations in the world are also exhibit very high levels of insurance penetration. I think if you talk about Japan, their insurance contributions in a year contribute up to 20% of their GDP. And you contrast that with Zimbabwe, where we are between 3 and 4% for the life and non-life, excluding obviously the medical insurance. And then insurance also supports entrepreneurship, which is an important thing because besides its ability to measure risk and give signals on whether you are able to do that in a profitable manner, insurance also will allow it to be more bankable from external. I think we always talk about why we cannot direct foreign FDI into the country. There are good reasons. In other countries, when a foreigner puts money, it's guaranteed. There are insurance schemes like the multilateral insurance guarantee from the World Bank, which would be able to ensure that at least it will not be appropriated. We do not have those things in Zimbabwe at the moment, and these are things that we need to be talking about to ensure that even money that is coming into the country is safe. Endeavors that we talk about big projects like reviving Zitf Steel, nuclear plants. Those things cannot happen because you are going to need multilateral funding, and it is a precondition for multilateral funding to be able to have appropriate risk management measures in place. And then the insurance, like I already said, they pull a lot of investments together and employ a lot of people within its ranks. The next slide I'll talk about is the evolving face of risk and the insurance responses that are available. As we are evolving, things are changing. I think there is debate on whether we are now in the 4th generation industrialization or 7th or whatever. But what is evident is that we've come a long way from when we used to use steam, when we thought electricity was the big deal, to now when people are talking about robotics and going forward. And all those issues bring new risks to the way that we do business. And one of the biggest risks that companies face at the moment are risks to do with our addiction to the internet, the use of computers, which are cyber risks, where all your information can be hacked, where all your systems can be remotely attacked. And if we thought that was a third world problem, I'm sure you know what the level of noise that happens with the United States elections. So that is an issue that we have. But fortunately, there is cyber insurance that has already been put in place. We also talk about climate change that is affecting us, especially and very topical for a country like Zimbabwe. But there are parametric covers that are in place now, which are basically index covers, very simple to administer. A farmer out there in Cholocho just needs to register, and they get paid just because a certain parameter has been breached, be it inadequate rainfall or going for a long time without the rain coming in. And for countries like Kenya up there in East Africa, they've really embraced this. They've moved it on even to the livestock, where the satellites are looking at the density of foliation or vegetation. Once that vegetative index is breached, and they can see that there isn't enough grass to last the season, they already start paying out for fodder. So those are things that we need to think about. There are also terrorism, and I'm pleased to say that in Zimbabwe there are political violence and terrorism covers. I think they have been marketed, but a lot of people think that these are issues that do not affect them. And then there are lifestyle diseases. There are now specialist covers for that as well. Long ago, if you were diabetic or if you had HIV, AIDS, it was difficult for you to find insurance cover, but now this is being done, and it is up to us to make sure that we embrace it so that we move that burden away from and we concentrate from the business that we specialize in. And then there are changing working patterns. We used to know that if you started work today, you retire at 65, but our young men and women are either not even working at all or they are moving from job to job. So there are now products that will look after them, the retirement products that are not really just linked to that time. Of course, that is there, it's a first pillar, but they are supporting products where you can also come in and have something additionally on top of what you would have from your occupational scheme. And then finally, I will just give a few reflections on how we think that insurance and industry can work together. I think the most important thing is that this issue of risk is really a governance issue. And as senior managers in companies, it is something that we should take seriously. We cannot leave it to chance. What we have seen is that managers sometimes take disproportionate levels of risk to achieve a certain objective. And after 2 years, the company collapses. And insurance can come in to assist with the oversight structures to ensure that the risk that is being taken by the managers is, because once we cost it, and then the company can make a decision on whether it is something that they really want to do. I think there's been a lot of talk about policies. I'm happy to say that the regulatory environment for insurance companies in Zimbabwe is significantly improved. There's a lot of tightening going on and a lot of strengthening that continues to be going on. But I think within, as has been mentioned before, within departments we still have gaps. For example, you have the life and non-life insurances being regulated by the Insurance and Pensions Commission, and then you have NASA being sitting under the Minister of Public Service, and then you also have the medical insurers being insured under the Minister of Health. So if there are any linkages or any scale, if there are any linkages or any scale advantages that we can get, we are missing out on them. And then I think it's important to have partnerships between government and insurers with clear boundaries on what is insured by government and what is not insured by government. I think we have reached in a cycle where whatever problem we have, the knee-jerk reaction from government sometimes is to just set up another fund to look into that. And then after 2 months, that fund is gobbling 60, 70% of the income as expenses. And insurance is able to do some of these things more efficiently. I was happy that the minister was saying we want private sector to play a big role, because insurance is motivated by a profit motive. So we are going to do things that will make us do better. I'm sure all of us who drive cars know now that you just need to go and be insured on an electronic platform because of the leakages that have been happening. So because of that interaction with other markets, we are able to continue to improve. And the loss motive is actually even stronger, because if you are going to do your underwriting badly and take on every risk and not price it properly, then the company is going to make a loss. We also need improved mechanism to facilitate wider participation of insurers in projects that stimulate industrial growth. The reason I'm saying this is that I've already mentioned that the funds that we hold as insurance companies are funds that do not really belong to us. So for us to invest, I know there are a lot of projects that would need money. We need to be very sure that the pension of that person who has contributed for 65 years can be maintained at the end of it all. But the good thing is that we are in there for the long run. From where I come from a First Mutual perspective, this is a company that has been around for 100 years. So I think when we talk about sustainability, it's an issue that we do not have illusions about. And then I was happy today to see the minister who is the secretary responsible for us, the Dr. Katera today, because they are also working on financial inclusion efforts. And this is something that we are very happy about, because once we can guarantee economic dignity for our people, we will be able to go forward both in terms of stimulating demand and also in terms of cutting out on the leakages. And then I think as an industry, we also deserve some kind of command. So we'd want the mandatory insurance covers to start off with to be expanded, so that the critical areas in our economy are properly covered. And then finally, we spoke about our risks going out and being placed in foreign places. I think of importance is for the powers that be to make sure that there's prioritization of payments for that, so that that geographical spread of risks can be attained. If we can't move money outside, we are going to continue to internalize it, and then it becomes a systemic risk on the insurance industry. But I think what made me even happier today is the issue of special economic zones, because with the resources that we have in terms of human capability, and if you add that to the to the ability of funds to flow easily in and out of the country, then insurance can actually be an exporter, especially on our reinsurance side, where we, because of our skills, we can actually insure risks from other countries as a reinsurance center. And this is something that has been growing over the years, but because of bottlenecks in settlements, that can be a problem. So I think that is an area that we can pursue going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nyabadza. I think you will agree with me that an insurance person is the best salesperson. What do you think? You know, these guys are so passionate about insurance to the extent that really, I think he has done justice to his topic, and he's covered quite a lot. I think in major take-home is to say companies are being encouraged to establish effective enterprise risk management systems so that we can manage our risks. And he also highlighted the fact that they're supporting industrialization as an insurance sector. Very important, because we need our industrialization to be sustainable. He also highlighted the fact that there are major investors who are promoting prosperity in Zimbabwe. I think another very important issue that he's raising there. So thank you so much, Mr. Nyabadza. I think this does bring us to the end of our official presentations today. I was looking around to see if anyone is sleeping. I'm happy to say that we have managed to keep you all awake. So I think we haven't done too badly, yeah? I think give us a round of applause. To help us with the discussions this afternoon, we do have a very competent person who's going to be taking us through. This lady, her name is Dr. Judith Katera. She has actually contributed quite a lot in terms of the field of economics in Zimbabwe and also policy. Dr. Katera is a permanent secretary in the Ministry of Finance, responsible for revenue, capital and financial markets, and international cooperation. She holds a Doctor of Philosophy in Economics from Jonan, is that correct, Madam? Jonan University of Economics and Law. Her thesis was entitled A Macroeconomic Analysis of Financial Problems and Financing Options for Public Sector Investment Programs for 1980 to 2010, the case of power projects in Zimbabwe, and best practice for low-income countries. She also holds a Master of Arts degree in Development Economics from Williams College, Center for Development Economics, CDE, Massachusetts, United States of America, and a Bachelor of Science degree in Economics, honors degree from the University of Zimbabwe. She is currently serving as a Policy Secretary and Economic Advisor in the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development, and is the alternate Executive Director of the African Development Bank, representing Angola, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and Malawi. She has served before as Permanent Secretary in the Office of the President and Cabinet, responsible for economic research and policy analysis, Secretary in the Office of the Vice President, Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Economic Development, Principal Director for Finance and Budget Development, Ministry of Finance, a former investment analyst banker for Privatization Agency of Zimbabwe. Dr. Katera is also a board member of the Zimbabwe National Road Authority, ZINARA, and National Indigenization and Economic Empowerment Board, NIB, and is a member of the Zimbabwe Economic Society. please put your hands together and welcome her as she takes us through the discussions. Maybe just to set the tone, Dr. Katera, just to mention that I think a lot has been said about the SADC industrialization strategy and roadmap, of which Zimbabwe was a pioneer in that effort. So I guess really what we've been talking about this afternoon is to say, how do we optimize and leverage on that strategy and roadmap? And I know that Zimbabwe right now, we are talking about how can we also popularize this? Because I know there's a workshop that's going to be coming on, that's been coordinated by the ministry. How can we popularize it, especially against the background of what we've heard today? We heard what His Excellency talked about in terms of making sure that we promote these partnerships with our friends, for instance, India, the India-Zimbabwe partnership. And then we also heard about the insurance, and we also heard about the infrastructural gaps that are already there. So looking at all of that, how do we translate all of that into this SADC industrialization strategy and roadmap? Madam, you take. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director of Ceremonies. A very good afternoon to you all, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to salute the only and outstanding Member of Parliament who is still around here, Honorable Dexter Nduna. Thank you very much for being with us to the end. Allow me to salute also and recognize the presence of His Excellency, Indian Ambassador, for gracing this occasion, Mr. Masakui. Thank you very much for being with us right to the end. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to thank all the presenters for all the good work they've done, and I'm not going to make any further comment because I'm sure those who have been listening, you have heard the messages that have been delivered. But what I would want to really emphasize is, as the day is gravitating towards the end, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I really want to encourage each and every one of us to listen very carefully. The session we're getting into now is discussions and feedback. Great leaders, and I want to emphasize from my little training, are those leaders with capacity to listen. And ask yourself, what is your major take home when you go back to your workplaces? What is the message you're going to take home, and what will be your contribution to the growth and development of Zimbabwe? I just want to also highlight some disturbing statistics, which I've taken note of as an economic analyst and advisor to government, to go home noting that India trade share is 2%, and Zimbabwe's trade share in the global market is 0.02%, 2.2% in total. That is very disturbing. Let's think about it. What is it that we are going to do to promote exports, to promote imports, to promote trade between Zimbabwe and all the friendly countries? Another disturbing statistic is that of FDI, mentioned earlier on by Mr. Sakala, that this has grown down from 20% to 1% of GDP. That is very sad news. So is the statistic on resources that are being put towards infrastructure development, that this figure has gone down to 1%. Ladies and gentlemen, can we now take this opportunity to raise questions to the presenters? We don't want anybody to leave this place with a burning question. I begin with this quadrant, I come to the middle, and to the left. Can I have 3 questions? I have one over there. Another question? Okay, can you go ahead with your question while others are figuring out what they want to ask?
Okay, thank you, moderator. My name is Funsaim Pazuriwo. I'm from Sunway City.
Can you please speak up?
Hello?
Yes.
I was saying my name is Funsaim Pazuriwo. I'm from Sunway City, one of the targeted special economic zones by government. What I have is rather a comment rather than a question to His Excellency the Indian Ambassador. I was happy to hear that he is in the process of making efforts of bringing Indian investors in the medical field to Zimbabwe. Why I'm saying that is because a Sunway City in the special economic zone, we actually have a certain area that is dedicated to the building of a specialized medical park. So I was very happy to hear what he said. I'll be following up with his office to see how we can further progress that project. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. Can we have another question from this quadrant? Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm Jadnos Garira from RNH. Maybe mine is also rather like a comment. Taking from what His Excellency the Ambassador has just availed to us concerning Marange, that for almost 13 years, DBS had been exploring. I was then thinking that Zimbabwe is full of elephants. Being full of elephants, we cannot make use of it. The other day, the Minister of Environment was talking about a stockpile of tusks that cannot be exported anymore. I was listening on the news the other day, and China is actually closing the factories that were manufacturing artifacts from ivory. My question or my comment is it not possible for us as a country to develop our own industry to create those artifacts? Because we forever have the elephants. We cull the elephants. And what would we do with the tusks? Can we create an industry to make those artifacts and use those artifacts amongst ourselves, even if we don't export them? Is it not a way of making sure that we are making use of our resources and we are enjoying our own resources? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Can I have a third, and then I'll revert to the presenters? I've been encouraged to manage time because the day is drawing to a close. Can I have questions from the rest of the audience? Yes, Honorable Nduna.
Thank you, Doc. I think mine will just touch on the last question from an honorable member to His Excellency, that I think we have a grouping that is CITES. So what we can as a country ask from you is that you continue to support our efforts in terms of dealing in ivory. You know, our antagonizers or our erstwhile colonizers and our the former masters of Zimbabwe would not have it that we grow our economy using what we have, in particular our wildlife. So my clarion call to you, based on the last question, would be for you and the other friendly countries sitting on CITES to support our call for opening up of trade in ivory, in particular that we have a lot of stockpiles. And then, Doc, I think for the other presenters that presented before, I'm hoping that Dr. Spanda is still here, and the other permanent secretaries or the other operatives, those fields. In particular industry, where we speak of beneficiation of our God-given resources, aware that government has taken over the COTCO debt of $68 million US, and also aware that government has given free inputs to cotton farmers for 3 seasons. This is the 2nd season. And also aware that they've given a producer price of 55 cents on A grade for cotton. Now is the time to be taking charge or command charge of the value-adding chain. Even though the machines are antiquated, moribund, rudimental, and historic fraud, we would want for companies like David Whited. Otherwise, we'll start exporting raw material. This is what needs to be given to the executive to say, can we open up the value-adding chain of companies such as David Whited? Otherwise, government has given its input for nothing. And then on the mining sector, Doc, this I think is not a question, but it is suggestions. I believe His Excellency has given amnesty to more than 3,000 jailed convicts. And those people are out because of amnesty. I called once when we had a meeting with His Excellency to say, can you forgive or can you give amnesty to those people that were giving to government gold deliveries? And these people are called artisanal miners, and they are called amakorokozas then, and they are small-scale miners. To that extent, I believe the Vice President who was here in the morning he intimated with His Excellency, and there's about 3,000 artisanal miners who were given amnesty, but who are now going back into prison because the archaic legislation has not come to Parliament to be repealed. So this goes to Dr. Ndlukula, if he's still here, or he's a right-hand man or otherwise, to say, can we have that piece of legislation, the Mines and Minerals Act, coming to Parliament, because the small-scale miners and artisanal miners have given to government more than 10 tons. And this has reduced illicit outflows. If we continue to have that legislation not coming for repealing to Parliament, we'll continue to criminalize our people so that we do not produce gold. And then the issue of special economic zones, Madam Chair. In 2015, yours truly standing here is the one that moved a motion in Parliament for the establishment of special economic zones. So this goes to Dr. Sibanda. Now what we need, we have a blueprint, we now have an act of Parliament, and assent by His Excellency. We need the establishment. We cannot continue to talk about establishment of these geographical locations at Sunway City, in Bulawayo, in Victoria Falls, or otherwise. We need implementation. We need implementation. I've got 3 words: implementation, implementation, and implementation, so that we can get what we want using what we've got. And then the second, the 2 last issues. We had here Dr. RBZ and Lugula. Sorry, it's Dr. Mlambo. Sorry, Dr. Mlambo. I strongly believe it's no longer a time of being disintegrated. Yes, I respect your office as RBZ governor, but it is time to have a monetary policy indaba as opposed to have a monetary policy presentation from your office. You now need to sit down, all stakeholders, because this economy as it is, we can no longer continue to have individuals taking charge. And then the other issue that I believe is very key is a mining indaba. We need to hedge on the mineral wealth that we've got. We have more than 60 minerals, of which only 20 are being extracted off the ground. And we have ubiquitous amount of gold. It's the only tradable commodity. And this is what can give us foreign currency. We do not print US dollars. So instead of just a mines and minerals, a Minister of Mines portfolio dealing with mines issues, we now need a mining indaba all the time. all the time, that centers on our mineral wealth so that we can get from where we are to where we want to go. I thank you, Doc.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we show our appreciation for the comments being made? Can I now take it back to the presenters? If anybody would like to comment on the issues that have been raised, but for some of the general comments and presentations, I hope the relevant authorities in government have taken note of the comments. Colleagues, presenters?
Zimbabwe Medical Park, India's
Yes.
role in setting up maybe hospital in Bulawayo. I think I mentioned that the last 10 months we have been making effort to bring in the corporate hospitals from India. This exploration has been on and even now is going on. I had earlier thought that this should come into Harare, given the fact that this has air connectivity, and Bulawayo has connection with just South Africa and not any other region. But I think it's changing because of the declaration of the special economic zone, and you right to mention Zimbabwe Medical Park, a special economic zone in Bulawayo. There are parties who are talking to the government to set up in Harare, one, because the population there is 4 million. And I have been arguing with my people back home in India that it would be equally viable to set up the hospital here in Bulawayo also, because if Bulawayo's population is 1.5 million, Kweru included and Victoria Falls included, and part of Botswana included. So the catchment area itself has become around 4 million people. So this is a viable, and of course added with this has given me a tool or a weapon to go back to my archives and say that now that the government has declared this Bulawayo region as a special economic zone, especially Zimbabwe Medical Park, so to reap all the benefits. But let me tell you one thing, that in all these efforts which I have been making along with, in collaboration with the government of the Republic of Zimbabwe and senior officers, our guys have been raising these issues of, if there's a partnership, of course, the work permit should not be a problem. And supply chain, of course, if you want to bring down the medical cost, then the generic medicine has to come from India. The third one recently, which one of the prominent owner of a corporate hospital has raised, is that if there's a liquidity problem in Zimbabwe, how will repatriate the fund, not for anything else, but for payment of the doctors that have come from India. So these are the few issues that we're trying to sort out. And hopefully, I think there are some banks who have agreed or are happy to assist in assisting in all these things. Second one is, my dear friend, you raised about this ivory, issues. I am aware that you have the 9 billion worth ivory with you and which you would like to trade. But just given the background of India, where elephant population is going down, and because of it, we are also a signatory of CITES, and because of this, trading of this ivory is illegal in India. But because of this background that we have, that the population of elephants in India is going down, I really don't know how we can, at the government level, speak for Zimbabwe to sell this, but this is the position as of now. Thought I'd just clarify that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Madam Chair, I don't know if there's anyone from...
I don't know if there's anyone who wants to comment from the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, given that we're talking about industrialization. The remark, Madam Chair, that was raised concerning value addition to our stockpile. I think that's the issue, really. I don't know if there's anyone who would like to take that one on. No, there are no takers, Madam.
Okay, anyway, looks like some of the issues that have been raised are more of comments which I really want to encourage representatives of government here present or the NECF Secretariat who are taking notes regarding discussions taking place here. Please, if we can actually seriously take note of this issue to do with the specialized medical park that the Republic of India is proposing between Zimbabwe and India. In Treasury, this issue has been raised. Minister of Health, this is being brought to your attention. We do not want to anticipate a situation where there is resistance to such developments. The issue of developing on industry on artifacts, yes, indeed, Minister of Industry, Value Addition, will not expect a response here, but can we take note? Is this something that we can embrace and take on board? The issue of supporting trade in ivory, yes, we are appealing to our friends, including India, as we vote on international fora. Can we support Zimbabwe on this issue to do with the sale of ivory? Issue of amnesty to artisanal miners. Office of President and Cabinet is here, I presume they're still, and Minister of Justice, can we take note? This is a clarion call coming from the audience. And then the emphasis on action, 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 implementation. Let's implement what we've been talking about regarding special economic zones. And then another remark to say, can we have more of monetary policy indaba, more of mining indabas in this country, so that we promote a dialogue between government and the players in the economy. I'm going to make a last call for anybody who's got a burning question. Otherwise, I would want to close this session and give a chance to the organizers to take us to the final session. Do I see a burning question anyway? Okay, the more hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I close. Beginning with yourself, Mr. Moyo.
1, 2. Thank you very much. Mr. Nyabaza from the insurance sector, I'm sure he may have thought he's not going to get a question. Political risk. Insurers still, I see you are insuring terrorism and more difficult things, but we still get this clause that says we will not insure political risk. Can you perhaps just elaborate what your thinking is around that? It's a subject that is raised whenever a foreign investor comes in, especially when there's this clause which people don't understand, to say we do not insure political risk. So a comment on that.
Okay, can I have the second question? I can't remember. I pointed out to, yes. Behind Mr. Moyo.
Good afternoon. My name is Nancy Gusha. My question is from before lunch, because we were asked to keep our burning questions for then. So really directed at Dr. Mlambo. What I wanted to find out is that you spoke about externalization and all the measures that the Reserve Bank and other stakeholders are taking to try and ensure that there is no externalization. And I think you mentioned a figure of almost 1 billion that Zimbabweans have saved offshore, but our savings locally are going down. What I wanted to understand is, what is the Reserve Bank and other stakeholders like government doing about confidence? Because what those savings offshore represent to me is a lack of confidence. And I think, having been burned 2007, 2008, a lot of us are not confident. And you can't force confidence. You can put all the measures in place, you can introduce bond notes, etc. I think it's an open secret that people are buying money at 18% and then going to Roadport, getting the Forex and still taking it offshore to bank in South Africa or other places. And I think the Indian ambassador also referred to what was happening at Marange for 13 years. He's kind because he assumes that we don't know. More cynical people like myself assume that someone amongst us Zimbabweans benefited in those 13 years. So it just represents more lack of confidence. So my question is, what is it that we're going to do to instill confidence? Because until there's confidence, we can do whatever we like. We'll work hard here, but people will take their money offshore.
Thank you very much. I see Dr. Sibanda in the hand at the back.
Thank you very much, Chair. I noticed that among the unfinished business, you mentioned the special economic zone. I want to make it clear in this audience that 30th of October, His Excellency the President signed this special economic zone is now an act of parliament. And we have now opened the doors for whoever would like to invest in the special economic zones. Unfortunately, we are getting a lot of foreigners, but we are encouraging our own local companies to team up with foreigners in terms of opening up these special economic zones. The conditions are very, very simple. You have to come up with new technology that enables you to export at the same time bring in capital, etc. My short intervention, Chair, is to say that our ministry is now open for the special economic zones. We have seen that the fastest growing economies in Africa and in the world have embraced this very, very important concept of special economic zones. China has been leading in terms of growth for the last decade. And Africa, particularly the 6 countries or so that have embraced these special economic zones, have actually achieved a tremendous growth. So, Chair Lady, I am saying we need to move a bit fast. It's an outward-looking policy, export-oriented economy, and export-led growth. So we're encouraging ourselves to be very innovative. The second aspect, Chair, is learning from India. What you find that most of the diasporans are the ones who actually brought new technology, who brought new ideas to the Indian economy. We have about 3 million diasporans, and we are encouraging the audience here to ensure that we team up with the diasporans. We've been advertising and advertising for us to ensure that remittances are channeled to the productive sector. So it is very important that per capita or per population, we have the highest diaspora in the world, if you want to put it that way, or among developing countries. So I want to encourage us to embrace them, to ensure that they channel through the productive sector. We did mention in the morning, Chair, that the diaspora remittances are a critical source of turning around the country. In Ethiopia, 25% of their GDP comes from the diaspora. They even have a diaspora day where they celebrate those who are actually contributing. This way, Chair, the special economic zone, diaspora remittances, competitive exports should go some way in terms of us joining the emerging countries and achieving high economic growth. I thought I would intervene that way, Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much for that intervention, Dr. Sibanda. Can I have the last hand at the back?
Thank you very much. I'd already said my name. I was just questioning on the last session, but this question refers to the morning session on issues to do with money. My question basically is to Dr. Mlambo. As a country, I would want to think that we should have a strategy towards the introduction of own currency. I've not heard anyone saying what is our strategy. It doesn't matter how long it is going to take for own currency to be introduced. It is important that as a people, we know when it is going or how we are going to get there. What the basis of my comment? The basis of my comment is that I consider currency as a tool, not just a store of value, a tool in the hands of our monetary authorities for the orchestration, leveraging, and manipulation of national resources for development. And if that is the case, we have no control of that tool. How then do we do what we are supposed to do as the monetary authorities to make sure that there's development? We have introduced the multi-currency without what I would call a demobilization strategy. We saw what it has done. We have We have also introduced the bond notes. I don't know whether we have got a demobilization strategy of the bond notes. So where are we going with the bond notes? Why don't we have a strategy that says this is how we are going to introduce our own currency? Yes, we want the economic fundamentals to be correct, but how do we get those economic fundamentals to be correct? My simple suggestion is, let's look for a country which we are friendly to, which
I
has...
give you half a minute to
Yes,
conclude.
yes, madam. Which we can negotiate with to use their money as a de facto currency, so that at the end of the day, that we can manipulate that money to develop our own industry. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I now want to take the questions back to our presenters here in the high table, and also some who have been participating earlier on. Just to highlight some of the issues, the question of political risk. Mr. Nyabadza, insurance industry, what is your comment there? And also on political risk, if you've got somebody from Minister of Industry and Commerce, can you also comment on the African trade insurance under the AFDB and how we are managing risk in that respect? A question of dollarization and also instilling confidence in the country, that's a question for government and Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. Then the last question that has been raised on how we are going to, if we're going to come up with a strategy for moving away from the bond notes and introducing our own local currency. Can I get some response?
Okay, thank you very much. I will respond to my brother's question there. I think political risk is a very broad aspect and a category on its own. And I think what he is referring to is the fact, is the risk that an investment will not be affected or will not lose value because of political decisions. And like I rightly said, there are institutions that are set up specifically to deal with those, because like I said in my presentation, there have to be clear boundaries between the insurability from the private sector and the insurability from multilateral or government bodies. And the MIGA, which I spoke about, and indeed ATI, which you made reference to, will be able to take care of those risks. But what the private insurance sector can offer at the moment is, if your business is damaged because of political violence and terrorism, that cover is there. But the cover to guarantee an investment, like I already said, is not yet there. And this is because we work with international partners, and they do not, most of them are not very happy with the way that policies and decisions are made and changed midway within the Zimbabwean context.
Okay, thank you very much for that intervention. Any other comments, colleagues? Do we have industry and commerce around? Africa Trade Insurance? Dr. Mlambo, would you want to assist? Thank you.
Thank you. I thought my time was up in the previous session, so I was not expecting more questions, but let me just respond to the two that have been raised. By the way, also on the Africa insurance, what is it called?
Trade insurance.
Yeah, I think the good news is that we've paid our dues, and I think some companies actually have been receiving. And I think the issue of country risk is one that has been discussed a lot, I know, in their last meetings. So I think we're making progress there. But anyway, on externalization, look, I agree absolutely that the graph that we showed of balances held by resident Zimbabweans in foreign banks is an indication of the level of confidence that people have in the economy. It's very clear, because you can see the money coming in, and then you can see at what period it started coming out. So it's definitely clearly an issue of confidence. And even the disappearance of the money from the formal systems, that's an indication of and it's not being held in because people say, oh, in Mbarem Sika or in Mkambo, this is where the money is. The money is not, the money is in the northern suburbs. That's where it's sitting. And we need to find ways of bringing it back into, because I know in the civil service, we don't have enough money to hoard money. So when we withdraw our money, we spend it. So it is a confidence issue. So what is required to deal with this issue? One is clearly people are worried about country risk. Busani called it, Busisari called it political risk, but it's really country risk. People are worried about country risk. And how insurers also mitigate against that becomes very important. We've seen, for example, an increased number of Zimbabweans holding money in Bitcoins. And that's a sign, because they're saying, oh, this one is international, so they hold money in that. That's a sign of issues of confidence. So we need to deal with that country risk issue. And I think a lot of things that are being done by the Office of the President to deal with that. The other one is policy credibility and consistency. And I think this is one of the areas where we have been challenged, that has been challenging in this country. But I think we're making progress in terms of following on policy announcements that we make. And I think our ability, our commitment to maintain the multi-currency regime is a case in point. Obviously, you will say, oh, but what about the bond note? But let me just explain that the bond note only works to the extent that every bond note that is circulating has a dollar backing, a US dollar backing. Otherwise, outside that, it won't work very well. So in other words, it's like, if you like, and don't quote me on this one, but if you like, it's like a derivative currency that is sitting on a real US dollar. So the underlying asset is the US dollar. So it functions as a derivative currency, if you like. And so the maintenance of the multi-currency regime, I think, is very important for building confidence. And also, I think progress that has been made with regard to clarifications of indigenization law are very important. Because I think what the president did last year was very critical. The next step now is to put that into law. Because what he said in that statement, if I remember very well, he said, if the law is at variance with my statement, the law must be changed. So I think we need to work on that. And we are working also to reduce the cost of banking, because sometimes people keep their money in the houses because it's very costly to bank. So we're working with the bankers to reduce the cost of, obviously if you don't have your own monetary policy, it's very hard to influence bank behavior except through moral suasion. And that is what we're doing. We call the banks, we meet with the CEOs of banks quite regularly, I think almost a month. And then there's also a committee between ourselves and BAZ that meets quite regularly to review the cost of banking. With regard to the second question on the currency, maybe let me explain also first of all. I think, let me say, in terms of introducing local currency, I think I will be the first one to admit that operating monetary policy without your own currency is near impossible, because you don't have the levers or the instruments that you require to influence monetary behavior through monetary policy. So it's been very difficult for us as a central bank to have a monetary policy that without having control over the currency. So I agree that this is an issue, because also, and that is why if I was a central bank governor in Zambia, with these kinds of shortages of cash that you are facing, I would have done something about the liquidity situation. Because one of the major roles of central bank is to infuse liquidity into the economy. But because we don't print dollars, we don't have that capacity, except that we promote exports. Having said that, I don't think Zimbabwe is ready for a domestic currency yet, because the experiences of what happened to the Zim dollar are still very fresh in people's minds. So, so I think we would create more insecurity, more uncertainty, if we actually started having a huge debate on the return of the Zim dollar. So it's very important that this debate must be well timed. What we have done in the central bank is to lay out what we think are the conditions for a return of a local currency. We're looking at the reserves. The governor has said he thinks you need about a year's reserves, a year, 12 months import cover, if you like. We need to deal with the fiscus, put in place very strong fiscal rules. Because a lot of the times when central banks print money, they are monetizing a fiscal deficit. So therefore, unless you have very strong fiscal rules, you can introduce any currency you want, but still you'll be forced to monetize government debt. So it's very important that then, at the same time, we have very strong fiscal rules. Third, there's a lot of discussion going on that it's also very important that you have a sort of a currency board of some sort that looks at. So there are a lot of conditions that we discuss, but let me be very clear that I don't think the debate about the return of Zim dollar is prudent right now because of the level of uncertainty that it would create in the market. And my last point is, it is very difficult to de-dollarize once you're fully dollarized. Because the dollar is a very captivating currency, the US dollar, I mean, very captivating currency, because you can stand up and go. You don't have to apply for foreign currency, you don't have to do this thing. And it's a global currency. The dollar is the only currency in the world that you can lend in any country and you can use it. So it's a very enticing currency, if you like. So it's been very difficult, and that's why in the history of dollarization, we don't have a country that is completely dollarized and moved back to its own currency. That doesn't mean it can't happen, but I'm just trying to show you the difficulties that are involved. And that is why when I hear, let's adopt the rand, and I'm thinking, and by the way, I was not talking about the rand, the currency in terms of just as a transaction, as a store of value. That's for the public. For the central bank, we look at the currency differently. So just to clarify. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is, good debate, but I don't think that this is the time to talk about the dollar. And you can pick any country you like, friendly or unfriendly, and say, give us your currency, but it's the citizens that have to accept that dollar. One of the lessons, and my last sentence, one of the lessons that I have learned myself from the monetary history of Zimbabwe is that you can't force citizens to use a currency they don't want. You cannot do it. And that is why the Zim dollar went out of business. There was no way, although the law was very clear, you cannot use foreign currency to purchase. But by 2008, I was not here, but I know what was going on. Even Mkambo or Mbaremsika, people were saying, look, I would rather give you my tomatoes for free. Here I take $1. When the law was very clear. So you can't force citizens to use a currency they don't want. You can try, but you can't. So for me, that should be a lesson to all of us.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mlambo. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to conclude this session by thank you very much for your participation and to thank the presenters. And my parting words will be to say, today the local, the global, and the regional, and the global buzzword or expression is let's not leave anyone behind. I want to use this expression to thank NECF and the organizers for recognizing gender. I see the gender indicator has been well taken care of. Unfortunately, the youth tracker, I do not see the youth. If they are there, they are not visible. So with these remarks, ladies and gentlemen, can we have the last round of applause to the presenters?
Thank you very much, Dr. Katera. I think she did justice to this session. Unfortunately, time is never on our side. I just want to end by saying thank you very much for being a fantastic audience, and you're still here, meaning that you found value in this conference. There are many, many lessons. I think, I'm sure the rapporteurs were taking note of some of the issues that were being discussed. For instance, the lessons around the international value chains that we heard about from His Excellency, who is still with us. Thank you very much. the need to increase our implementation of our special economic zones and our policy frameworks, the need for us to promote exports by industrializing and also growing our foreign currency inflows. I think this has been well articulated by our central bank governor, who is still with us. We thank you so much, Deputy Governor, for being here. And also, I've just been reminded that there is a mining indaba that will take place in July. So I believe it will be a perfect opportunity for us to discuss further those issues around endowments and valuations that were highlighted earlier on. So I think in conclusion, our contention around industrialization in Zimbabwe, the contention has been well spoken about. The fiscal policy that we need to take care of, the monetary policy, still there's a lot of work to be done there. Industrial infrastructure gaps, which were highlighted earlier on by our Honorable Mr. Sakala, who's sitting here with us, and also the risks, the industrialization risks that we must be aware of. I think at the end of the day, all of us, I think, are aware that we've got a local, regional, and international linkage that we need to apply ourselves. Locally, we already have identified a number of value chains. I'm sure CZI, Mr. Moyo, those value chains which we still need to implement. I think they've been brought down to 10 from 18. We're aware of those. Regionally, we do have our regional value chains as we are part of SADC and we are part of COMESA. And internationally, we've already heard about some of the international work that needs to be done. So I think with those few words, I'll give an opportunity to our last three sponsors who have not said anything yet. We do have amongst us ZERA. Do we have a representative from ZERA, the Zimbabwe Energy Regulatory Authority, who can just come and say in 1 or 2 minutes, just a few words, please. And then if you can also be ready, Tel One. Do we have someone from Tel One who is with us? If you can just be close by, just so that we can manage our time. And Zimpost. Zimpost, do we still have a representative from Zimpost? If you can just be on standby. Thank you very much, Dr. Engineer Gloria Magombo. Thank you.
Good evening. I would like to observe all protocol. I'm not going to say much. We are just going to play a small video, but I'll just give a brief background on the video. As you are aware, I think most of the industrialists who are here and retailers, there will be the implementation of the statutory instrument 21 of 2017, which is the implementation of the banning of inefficient lighting. And is coming into effect with effect from the 1st of May this year, which is a few days from now. We have been running adverts in the media targeting you as consumers, but we'll just want to remind you that it will be illegal in Zimbabwe to stock and sell and manufacture any form of inefficient lighting with effect from the 1st of May 2017. So the video is just to reiterate that, because we are addressing both the consumers and also the producers of the product. It brings in a lot of opportunities for people to go into manufacturing of efficient lights, and the partnerships which we were talking about earlier on will come in very handy. And given that we still have infrastructure challenges, we believe that energy efficiency is the way to go, and this is in line with the SADC Energy Minister's resolution to say that we need to ban inefficient lighting. And other countries have done it. We are learning and we are doing it now. I would like to reiterate what Mr. Sakala said, that at times we don't learn, but we are learning and we are doing it. And we would like you to watch the video and work with us on this area. I thank you.
Mukwasha. Zvamukatodzima wani nokutenga malight bulb muchiri kustoka iwai mazipedza magetsi mazipedza mari ndikuda ma energy saver anosevha magetsi zvese nekusevha mari.
Mother, uya $1 chete.
Washa, switch on money. What the hell my energy saver light bulb? Aya, ndiwo anonzi ma-energy saver light bulbs. Shasha pakuseva magetsi, shasha pakuseva mari.
Do the bright thing. Switch on to energy saver light bulbs. Save energy and money. Zera for sustainable energy.
Oh, mana futhi. Aiwa, izvazvitaita zvinoda kutochinjwa global. Aiwa, hazvinetsi kana takufana kutochinja. Iwo ndokuva ndakapedzera kutakura. Ndiwo unongo kuti mutakura. Mana, ndotakura nekuti ndotakurika. Saka singatakurike ndiani? Ndichosumuka papa tiona tibatsire kuchinja global. Aiwa, unotota zvako zvekutotadza kutoita ngirino uchitodaro so. Aiwa, uyetu.
This is a classic filament bulb that we can all buy for cheap. What you may not know is that 95% of the energy that goes into these gets turned into heat. As a result, these commonly used bulbs are very harmful to the environment. This is an LED or compact fluorescent bulb. These energy savers are 80% more efficient and have more than 10,000 lighting hours. They produce the same brightness with 6 times less wattage and will last you 5 years longer as the consumer.
Magetsi aenda.
Panext do aripona.
Pamwe adinguka rega nditarise.
Magetsi apera futi. Batanidzai mari tichotenga mamwe magetsi. Futi here. Mamaka, iniri nyaya yemari yemagetsika inazondisvina homwe manje.
Mumba mangu handichazivi kukanganya chaiko. Mari yese yababadzidzai yakutongopera iko kumagetsi.
Panguva ina handikutambira zvichemo kana nhoroondo.
Mazizuka dzangu.
Shewe.
Ndambira maglobal sendakuigira.
Aiwa matoita basa baba mutonenge manyumwa kwatosara 1 chairo.
Ndangova Juma $4 chete.
Aya matenga ma-light bulbs ndo ari kupedza magetsi waya.
Oh,
ezvo. Kunokuka. Momzi vakatoti munhu wese ngaashandise ma-CFL nema-LED. Ari kutisevhera magetsi nemari zvekuti tarisai mone riri kunoku. Andimukuona here. Iwaya yaka. Rinogona kusvika kana 5 years momzi. Kunozvarwa kamwana kudai kakakura kakaenda kucrash muchingori ne1 bulb kwete nyaka dzamukutiti.
Chokwadi kudzidza akuperi.
Zvimwe munongobvunzawo ana bright.
Baba tarisai, muri kundinzwa here? Chibvai matotenga ma-energy saver light bulbs. Hanzi ndo anosevha magetsi chaizvo.
Do the bright thing. Switch on to energy saver light bulbs. Save energy and money. Zera for sustainable energy.
Thank you very much, Dr. Engineer Magombo. May I please have the speaker from Tel 1?
Hello, everyone, at least what's left in the room. The few that are left in the room. We're going to do a video as well. It's a 5-minute video, so I'll try to keep my speech very short. I'll just preempt it a bit. It's on our data center.
In Zimbabwe.
Sorry, just hold. We recently launched our data center. It's a state-of-the-art data center in March this year. So this video pretty much gives you a snapshot of the data center. We're inviting all of you to come through to Harare and tour this data center, and we can have a conversation around how it can benefit you. We're also inviting you to our stand for you to just get a peek at our state-of-the-art landlines, ones that allow you to actually do video conferencing. Just come through to our stand and have a look. But I think over to the video.
In 2016, more than 7.5 billion megabytes of data was used in Zimbabwe alone, making advanced technology, supported software, and scalable infrastructure a high priority. The Tel1 Data Center is a state-of-the-art, high-security data center where big data is collected, stored, processed, distributed, and accessed. The data center offers a one-stop shop service which allows customers to get everything under one roof. The range of services include rack space rental or server rack units rental, where customers are able to install their own servers or rent servers from Tel1's enterprise data center facility. Co-location services allow enterprises to rent space for servers and have their information and communication technology ICT equipment housed by Tel1. Cloud services allow corporates and individual customers to have their @domain-name.co.zw emails. Local domain registration ensures that your website and email server is secure from unprotected sources and risk of hacking. Storage facilities. Clients can store their data, create databases, and back up their critical data for quick recovery in case of emergency. Virtualized hosting environments. Enterprises can do away with the need to buy capital equipment such as servers and related infrastructure, supported with robust antivirus and firewalls to ensure that no spam is allowed to attack from unprotected websites. Disaster recovery. The replication and hosting of physical or virtual servers to provide failover in the event of a man-made or natural catastrophe. Other services include infrastructure as a service, software as a service, platform as a service, hosted development platforms, enterprise resource planning, management systems. As a Tel1 data center customer, you will be assured of business continuity from a reliable and integrated one-stop shop, a centralized high-quality service operation, and standard maintenance that is easy and flexible to change and expand. IT cost savings of between 15 and 35% when you transform from silo data center to our integrated service without compromising on security and reliability. Reduce cost of management, infrastructure, equipment, and maintenance. Companies can retain control of their ICT infrastructure while taking advantage of Tel1's state-of-the-art technology, scalability, security, and availability. Give businesses the scope to focus on core business operations. Tel1's cloud services can adequately cater for all traffic on e-commerce platforms, allowing customers to have real-time access to services such as e-banking, e-ticketing, or other self-service portals. The facility is Tier 3 data center backed by uninterrupted power supply, standby generators, and battery power, offering reliable and integrated services which guarantees business continuity and secure backup solutions to support safe data center 99.98% uptime. All our facilities are fitted with automatic gas release, heavy-duty extractor fans, and raised floors for upward cooling. The Tel1 data center offers a more secure environment supported by multi-tier security system, biometric, CCTV, physical security presence, anti-denial of service, and next-generation firewall protection. Tel1's data center and cloud solution is here for your convenience to develop and manage customer-specific cloud applications, virtualized server rental for applications or testing newly developed applications, to supply network server storage and the construction of on-site data centers. Our secure and robust ring fiber connectivity connects your branches to the data center through virtual private networks or dedicated leased internet. Located in major cities in Zimbabwe, Tel1's data centers ensure that information stored at one data center is mirrored at another data center as backup. Its design by nature renders it flexible and scalable to suit the ever-growing need for data. Tel1 invites you to partner us in safeguarding critical and valuable data through the Tel1 Data Center and Cloud Solution. Tel1, bringing you together.
Thank you very much, Tel1, and congratulations on the launch of your data center. Can I please invite the last presenter from Zimpost?
Dear colleagues, I am here to present to you Zimpost. In a few words, I would like to highlight that competent and reliable business partners are key in achieving business success. And as Zimpost, we believe that there are opportunities for Zimpost to collaborate with a number of corporates that are represented here, because Zimpost is a trusted business partner. May I let you know that we have a unique sales network of 248 postal outlets countrywide that are located in both urban and rural areas. And we believe that through that network, we can be able to work with banks, insurance companies, and a number of other corporates. We are currently investing in technology to ensure that our processes are automated and that you can be able to do real-time transacting in our post offices. We are improving efficiency, and again, we are introducing what is called the intelligent rented box. Those companies that rent boxes at the post office, you have to drive to the post office to check whether there's something that is in your box. But what is happening is that through technology, we are trying to bridge the gap between the physical and the digital worlds. And what we are doing is that we are putting a solution that will be able to tell you that there is something that has been delivered into your box each time something is put into your box. Our services, we are currently servicing the financial services market through the agency banking model. And instead of banks investing in brick and mortar, we are saying there's no need to invest in brick and mortar. You can actually come to us, we talk, and you could be having an additional 248 outlets where your customers can actually be served. We can be able to do account opening, cash deposits, cash withdrawal, and balance inquiry through the postal network. And so far, we are currently working with 4 banks where you can actually, instead of going to your branch, you can actually go to the post office to be able to do your transactions. The next slide. We are very good at agency banking. And last year, our efforts were actually honored because we were considered the best banking agent in Zimbabwe at the Digital Financial Services Conference. So we are good at it, and we are always striving for excellence. We also have our own money transfer service called Zitf Co, and this is an alternative service to send and receive money instantly and at the lowest charges. You can be able to send money locally or internationally. We're currently servicing 8 countries. So you can be able to send money to 8 countries through Zitf Co. And the service is instant, and you can be able to receive your cash. Where other people are struggling with cash, we are able to give you your cash at the post offices. So I'm encouraging you to use the postal network and use Zitf Cash to be able to do your money transfers. For those companies that are engaged in direct marketing, instead of giving flyers to your employees to distribute them on roads, what we are saying is that Zimpost has got a solution for us to be able to deliver addressed and unaddressed promotional material to your customers direct on their doorsteps. To the print media, we are saying there is no need for you to invest in having employees that go and deliver newspapers. What we are saying is let's come together and collaborate so that Zimpost can actually be able to deliver your newspapers to your customers. We are also good at agency services. Currently, we are doing vehicle licensing for Zinara, third-party insurance for a number of insurance companies. And we are saying, as Zimpost, we are trying to be innovative to make sure that we reach our customers and bring convenience to them. Currently, we are working with a number of supermarkets so that we can be able to bring convenience, so that you can do your vehicle licensing at your favorite supermarket while you are shopping. You can also be able to do vehicle licensing. You can be able to get your third-party insurance, and you can also be able to pay for your radio license. So we are saying there are opportunities for us to work together. Come to us, talk to our sales team, and we can be able to make sure that we bring convenience to yourselves and to our customers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Zimpost. Thank you. We have come to the end of our day, the third session of the day. All that's left for me to do is to thank the esteemed speakers who have been very patient listening to all these presentations. Thank you very, very much. I think you are now allowed to go, finally. And I'll hand you back to our Director of Ceremonies who will take us through. I'm just being given instructions, you know. All right. Okay. I've just been advised that some tokens of appreciation have been given to our speakers. Thank you very much to the organizers and also to the sponsors who have been fantastic in sponsoring all of this. But I've also been told that we won't have a break in between. We're just going to complete this day by having the recommendations read. And I believe is it Mr. Chakanetsa or is it Mr. G. Murewa who is going to read them? Mr. Murewa, thank you. I think if the speakers want to come down, you are welcome to do so. I know some of you have been kept there longer than you expected. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gadzikwa, and good evening to everyone. We have come to an important session of this conference. It has been a tiring day. We have been here since morning, And I see, according to my clock, it's almost 6:30. But what we want to do now is to find out the message that we are communicating from all the deliberations that have been going since morning up to now. What message are we communicating in terms of the recommendations that we are giving forward to the responsible organizations to implement? So in that regard, as your secretariat, we have come up with just a few recommendations, the highlights of what the recommendations will be like. Because what we are going to do is that we are going to come up with a comprehensive report that will show these recommendations in sector-specific areas. The first issue is that on cash shortages. We all understand that this is a current challenge that we are all aware of. And in order to deal with cash shortages, we are recommending that let's encourage people to continue using plastic, to encourage people to use plastic money as a way of maybe trying to do away with the queues that we have in the various banking halls. We have heard from the Deputy Governor that of the bank assets, only 2% is notes and coins. So we encourage people to use plastic money, and let's continue with the promotion of that. We also want to encourage the use of more currencies in the basket of currencies to avoid demand pressure on the US dollar. I think that has come out strongly during the presentation by the Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. Then another issue that came out in the discussions is the lack of competitiveness of Zimbabwe firms, as well as the products that come out of those firms. And what can we do to address such a challenge? We need to look at creating a low-cost environment in the country's productive sectors for us to be able to compete in both domestic and foreign markets. We need to build regional and international value chains with countries such as India and Namibia. Then another issue is that of balance of payments deficit. We all know that we are importing more than what we're exporting. And we're saying as a country, we don't have a currency of our own. And the way we are generating money is through exports. And how can we energize exports? That can be done through value addition and beneficiation. We can also have strategies such as export diversification and differentiation in terms of products and markets. Let's run away from the primary products. If you look at the list of our key export products, you see your gold, you see platinum, you see tobacco, and those are primary products. Why don't we look at valuating those? And also, we diversify in terms of markets, the destination, the countries to which we're exporting. Why don't we also look at reaching to other destinations? Then also strengthening the various export promotion institutions. We know Zimtrade, as well as the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, RBZ are doing. Let's strengthen those institutions as well as the departments that are working on export promotion. Next slide. Another issue that came out very strongly is the issue of high cost of doing business in the country. How best can we address that challenge? We thought that if we could explore opportunities for low cost and affordable financing in terms of requirements to access funding, that is addressing the issue of cost of finance. And as far as retooling is concerned in our industries, that is a major challenge. Then we also want to recommend OPC to continue with its current work on addressing impediments to doing business in the country across all sectors. We are aware of the ease of doing business and the Rapid Results Initiative. Then we address the cost of utilities, the issues of water, electricity. We know that as Zimbabwe, we have the highest cost of utilities in the region compared to countries like Zambia, South Africa. I was saying the other issue is that to consider the resuscitation of National Railways of Zimbabwe as a way of cutting the doing business costs in terms of transport, because we all know that when we are moving bulk material, road transport is very expensive. So if rail transport can be resuscitated. At least we know that some costs will be cut in terms of doing business in Zimbabwe. Then on command agriculture, while East government is being commended for an initiative, we call upon government to place mechanisms to guard against unscrupulous dealing in grain, especially given that maize imports can land in the country at a lower cost compared to the producer price on the market. Then with regards to SI 64 of 2016, we say it's a good initiative, but we recommend the speed in terms of drafting the local content requirements regulations, which are more inclusive, which is a more inclusive approach, and which also make sure that we don't violate some of our commitments that we've signed with our trading partners. Then next. Then, of course, on 8 and 9, we've got the issue of dialogue to say we do have many challenges, yes, but we also have solutions to many of those challenges. And how can we get those solutions? It's through dialogue, like what we are doing today. We discuss, we know that no one has a monopoly of their brains, and through talking, through consultations, at least we will have some strategies coming out, and strategies of which that can be used to address several challenges affecting our nation. Then, of course, the issue of implementing the various policies, cohesion, with regards to various departments that are mandated to implement the various policies of government as well as other non-government organizations. As a way forward, as I said in the beginning, as your secretariat, we are going to produce a comprehensive report on the proceedings of the conference, including sector-specific recommendations that will be forwarded to responsible departments for implementation considerations. As I said, this is just a snapshot of what the recommendations will be like. We'll produce the comprehensive report, and if you feel like there's some key recommendations or burning recommendations that have been left out, just write something on a paper and deposit it by the secretariat desk over there. We'll capture it in our report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gordon Murewa, for the recommendations. We now call upon the Executive Secretary, NECF, Ms. N.M. Chakanetsa, for the closing remarks.
A very good evening to you all. It is my pleasure to stand before you today as the last speaker of this conference to give the closing remarks and vote of thanks. As we have all noted, the discussions we engaged in have been very interactive. And allow me to first of all thank the Zitf company and the NECF for successfully organizing this conference. The caliber of presenters and the delegates has indeed been very high, and this has helped the conference to come up with sound resolutions which will be easily cascaded into policy formulation in order to continuously improve the business environment. I would like to congratulate the Vice President for his keynote address to the conference. We value his attendance, and the Vice President was very clear on how Zimbabwe as a nation must move forward, harnessing the linkages for industry development, for export development. The papers that have been presented today have been well thought out, have been loaded with information that is useful to reviving our industry. I would like to thank you all as presenters and moderators, discussants, for stimulating the lively discussions that we had today. This year's International Business Conference has indeed lived up to its expectations. The mixture of the presenters gave us a balanced array of experiences from which Zimbabwe can learn and work towards developing our industry. Ladies and gentlemen, I will not even attempt to summarize any of the presentations and discussions, as this has already been done by the previous speaker, who has clearly outlined the conference resolutions as well as proposing a way forward from this conference. Allow me to re-emphasize that all of us here today are responsible for making sure that resolutions from this conference are implemented so that we can achieve our goals of industrial development. Let me finish by closing my closing remarks by thanking our sponsors for making this conference the success that it has been. The 2017 installment of the International Business Conference has been proudly sponsored by First Mutual, Zimbabwe Energy Regulatory Authority, TEL1, CABS, Traffic Safety Council of Zimbabwe, Net1, the Standards Association of Zimbabwe, Rainbow Tourism Group, Marketers Association of Zimbabwe, Zimpost, and Schweppes. I would also like to thank the IMC Worldwide for the technical support that made this conference possible. Without taking much of your time, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say to our sponsors, please come back again next year so that we can produce a conference even better than this one. I wish you fruitful engagements to everyone here during the rest of the Trade Fair week. Together, we make Zimbabwe great. Tatenda, Siyabonga, thank you.